This episode of Derek and Matt Love Comics recorded January 6th, 2019. You can find Derek and Matt Love Comics on the usual places like Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and TuneIn. Contact the show, derekandmattlovecomics@gmail.com, on facebook.com/derekandmatt, at Derek and Matt on Twitter, on Instagram, at Derek and Matt, on YouTube, Derek and Matt Love Comics channel, and enjoy the show. Hey yo, comic book fans, it's Matt, and you're listening to Derek and Matt Love Comics, the show where two friends talk sci-fi, movies, animation, comic books, and all things we geek out about. With me is the Mountie of podcast airways, Derek. How you doing, Derek?
Pretty good. Just let me get down off my high horse, and we can get started on this week's episode of the podcast.
So it's January the 6th, so I'm assuming that you're just starting to sober up after your wild bender of a New Year's Eve?
I don't know, man. I've been drinking a lot of beer and ale. Keeping in mind that that's root beer and ginger ale.
I think he was asleep by 10, so.
Oh yeah. It's amusing because I'm actually literally sipping ginger ale as we're talking right now.
I was not asleep by 10. Not that I did anything particularly exciting. We'll get into that actually in a bit. But so, okay, we came back for the Charlie Brown Christmas episode, which I really wanted to do. We took the next week off because if you saw the if you saw the meme that I put up on our Instagram and Twitter, illness would not leave us alone at the end of 2018.
Nope.
And Derek was pretty much rendered completely useless by the flu.
I'm usually fine for most of the year, but around Christmas, I'll suddenly get the flu or a really bad cold, and I'll basically be knocked on my butt for like 2 weeks. And that's what happened.
You know, I gotta say, despite all the stuff I had to go through in the hospital with my heart issues and everything, I didn't get like my 7 colds that I normally get this year.
You that it's 7 is kind of surprising to me because you end up usually getting a cold almost every month, if not every other month.
Yeah, I mean it's very frequent that I get a, you know, like a 2 to 3 day cold.
Well, see, that's the thing is I rarely get a cold that lasts only 2 to 3 days. If I get it, I will be essentially bedridden for 3 days, and then I'll gradually get better over the next 2 weeks, and it always takes 2 weeks.
And I was looking at a really bad one starting right before Christmas, and I don't know, first of all, I felt like it was starting way before I had my pacemaker thing going on, and I was just willing it not to happen. And then when it really started to happen, I just hit so much vitamin C and vitamin D and peppermint and various like zinc and elderberry and everything you can throw at yourself to build your resistance, and I got through it quickly. So
yeah, I don't really do that myself. Basically I just stay in bed and drink a lot of ginger ale and a lot of water and take the occasional ibuprofen, and that's basically it.
So what we decided to do for today was sort of do one of our list episodes, but we're going to hit you with a couple of lists because it's going to be our 2018 wrap-up, and we are going to discuss 3 lists, and we won't be giving each list the full treatment that we normally have done in the past, but we're going to be doing our top 5 favorite movies of 2018, and then we're doing a general top 5 favorite other things of 2018, and then our top 5 most anticipated things for 2019. It still feels weird saying 2019. Hey, this is the year that Blade Runner is supposed to happen.
I'm gonna have to start getting skinny ties.
It's also the year that Zardoz is supposed to happen.
Yeah, I'm not wearing that.
And the world thanks you. So, starting with movies, Derek, what was your number 5 movie of the year?
Okay, this one was tough because Well, when we did this last year, it was much easier because I had managed to see a lot more movies in 2018, in 2017.
Plus, we did a combined list last year.
Right, we did. But for 2018, I've only seen like 9 or 10 films, so there are a couple of movies in my top 5 that probably normally wouldn't be in there, but are in there just simply because I've seen so few. I do want to make an honorable mention to The Shape of Water, which came out at just before Christmas 2017, and I did not see until it came out on Blu-ray in, what was it, March, I think, or April of 2018?
That sounds right. We did an episode on it shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I wanted to give that an honorable mention because that would actually be my number 1 for the year if we were able to include it, even though it didn't come out the calendar year. And it would be much, much higher ranked than any of the films in my actual top 5. But speaking of the top 5, do you want me to just list all 5? If we're doing this a little quicker?
No, we can still do the back and forth.
All right.
Give a brief description of why your film is there in that place.
Okay. Number 5 on my list for 2018 is Deadpool 2. Now, this one surprises me because I really did not care for the first Deadpool film, but I ended up actually really enjoying, if not outright loving, Deadpool 2. It just, I thought it corrected a lot of the problems I had with the first film, and it was a fun, entertaining romp. And I'm kind of starting to get to the point where I'm actually starting to really like a lot of the recurring characters in the Deadpool films. Like, I love their version of Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. They might be my 2 favorite X-Men movie universe characters.
I'm sorry, I was turning my chat sounds off because Dan just started sending messages to us.
Yeah, we're going to be getting a lot of people interrupting tonight. But yeah, Deadpool 2. Thoughts?
I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I liked it better than the first one. I feel like he felt way more true to the character in the second one, and I didn't have any major problems with long stretches of the film being vastly out of character like I did with the first one.
Right. Yeah, I just found it overall much more entertaining. As you said, it very much was more accurate to the character as depicted in the comics. People love to say that the first film was completely the comic book character when really it was not.
Well, I also feel like because I saw Once Upon a Deadpool, I also feel like that sort of proved the whole notion that it has to be rated R for it to work wrong, completely on its head. You know, it completely proved that wrong. Because the movie was, so there's basically 3 versions of Deadpool 2 at this point. There's the regular cut, there's the super duper cut, which is a director's cut or whatever you want to call it. And then there's the Christmas Once Upon a Deadpool. I still prefer the super duper cut to the other 2, so I'm preferring the R-rated version. However, they made everything work in the Christmas version. Now, there were a few things in there where I felt like, it felt weird, not because this didn't work, the choice they made to replace the R-rated material, but it kind of had a feeling like when I used to watch movies on TV in the 80s and they would have like new lines dubbed in to replace the swearing. Except these were actually good lines for the most part, and not like someone at NBC saying, you know what they should say here.
Oh, yeah, stuff like monkey flipping.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah,
This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps.
Oh, references.
Oh, it's my favorite.
Yeah, that one's a funny one. The funny thing for Deadpool 2, though, is I've only seen the theatrical version. I have not seen the super duper cut yet, and I have not seen the Once Upon a Deadpool, which I really do want to see. But probably be a couple of months before I get a chance to.
Yeah, I have no idea what the release plan is.
I just think it's funny that I did not like Deadpool 1, but I liked Deadpool 2 enough that I'm probably probably going to end up buying it twice.
Right.
Because I have the Super Duper Cut regular Blu-ray release, and then I'm probably going to end up buying the Christmas one.
So, according to Letterboxd, I've seen 31 films in 2018. That's counting Once Upon a Deadpool and Deadpool 2 as two separate movies. It's also counting the short film Bow, which was preceded Incredibles 2 in the theater. I don't know. Did you ever watch that? It's on the Incredible 2 Blu-ray.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, that's the one about the dumpling.
Yes.
Yes, I did watch it. I actually really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too, but it's kind of messed up.
It is really, really bizarre, but I thought it was sweet, and I enjoyed it.
I was wondering if I saw any more movies than last year because of having MoviePass for part of the year. Mm-hmm. But then MoviePass did fall apart on me at one point. Quick look on Letterboxd, again counting documentaries and shorts. I actually saw 33 films last year.
I think it actually fell apart for you pretty quickly.
Yeah. Although this is the total count of
right.
This is the total count of 2017 films I've seen. Again, as you pointed out, Shape of Water I did not actually see until 2018. There's a couple other ones on here that I didn't see until 2018. So I'm not sure what I actually saw in 2017. Mm-hmm. But in 2018 I've got 31 films, like I said, mentioning Deadpool being on there twice and Bow being on there. The Andre the Giant documentary's on there. A couple of straight-to-DVD things like Batman Ninja and Scooby-Doo Batman Brave and the Bold. I think Batman Ninja actually might be my lowest of the year because it just did nothing for me. But, well, no, I'm sorry. The Predator was my lowest of the year. But on to the actual top 5 list that we're doing. My number 5 was Incredibles 2. I'll talk briefly about this because I know it appears on your list later. Hey, there was no reason for this movie to be as good as it was. After as much time that had passed, and you would think, like, is everyone gonna come back at the top of their game or whatever? Like, I love Incredibles, and there was so many ways this could go wrong, and none of those ways happened. It is a great film. It's not as good as the original, but it's not that far off from the original either. So we can discuss it more when we get to your spot, but
yeah, I'm trying to avoid talking about what I love about it because I'm going to be getting into that whenever we get to my pick.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We can move on. But
it's I think it's a very, very good companion to the original film.
It is an amazingly strong sequel for a movie that is 12 years removed from its original.
14.
Yeah. We're
2004 to 2018.
I'm gonna talk about another sequel on this list that was far removed from its original too. So,
further.
Yeah, very much so. But you know, I bring that up because I feel like the last 2 years I've kind of been saying, like, why are we getting these sequels to movies that came out 10, 15 years ago, and all of a sudden they're like starting to work. So. Right.
Well, the issue is whenever you have people working on the film who are just doing it because, well, the studio wants a sequel and they don't care, and it's kind of like a work for hire thing. Or when you got people coming in who were either involved in the original, like Brad Bird with The Incredibles,
right? Or
you have people who have a lot of love and affection and veneration for the original and don't want to screw it up.
Right.
Going into what is going I know is going to be your pick later.
Well, and not only that, but my last year my number 1 pick was Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a similar situation.
Yeah, that fits exactly into what I'm saying. Where people you bring in someone who has a love for the material. Not someone who's just doing it as like a paycheck or a calling card to get another job.
Right.
J.J. Abrams. Excuse me.
Yeah, you know, everyone says that about J.J. and Star Trek. I don't care because I still really, really, really like that movie.
I do not.
I know you don't. Yeah, it's okay that you're wrong. So what is your... What's that?
I could say this. I could say the same thing to you.
Yeah, except I've been kind of making that my catchphrase on Facebook lately.
Oh yeah.
So, So what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Ready Player One. Gosh, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie. Okay, I am a pretty big fan of Steven Spielberg's period from about 1975 to the mid to late 80s. I think that period of his career is almost flawless. It's just a heck. Okay, back then he wasn't the craftsman that he has become now over time, but I think that there was much more of a kind of a mad genius and experimental attitude in his movies back then that just make them so much better, and they seem bigger, more epic, and more classic and iconic. And Spielberg has done a lot of movies over the last 20 years in the 21st century that are really, really good. At least one that I love, Catch Me If You Can. But generally, I don't think his films the last 20 years really match up to his early part of his career. But I was surprised that... So I was looking forward to seeing Ready Player One, but I ended up being surprised at how much I actually ended up enjoying the film. I was afraid that, that I would like it, but that it would either just be just overlong or just kind of miss the mark for me. But in the end, I ended up really enjoying it. It was a fun adventure film, and we've had conversation about this in the past where we have issues with the source material with the book, and Spielberg, showing the master storyteller, just corrected all that. I think the effects were great. I think the homages to stuff, and the video games, classic video games, and pop culture, and that were all great. But I also really love this movie because there is a really biting satire going through it that I don't think people really notice.
Right.
And it's Steven Spielberg basically wagging his finger at Hollywood for kind of fetishizing and regurgitating pop culture, including his own canon of films.
Right.
I just think it's brilliant. Yeah, I thought this was a great movie.
So yeah, we've discussed regularly on the show my problems with the book. I really liked the movie when it first came out. When I re-ranked all the films I saw this year before I came up with my list, and I did find that Ready Player One ended kind of lower than I expected it to. I don't know if that's just because of repeated viewings or whatnot. It ended up at number 13 for the year between Ralph Breaks the Internet and Deadpool 2, which was kind of a drastic drop-off for it. But I don't know. I still really like the film. I'd been meaning to watch it again to re-rank it, because I only really saw it the time in the theater that I saw it and the time that I watched it with you. I just feel like everything that's above it on my list was stuff that I was anticipating more.
Mm-hmm.
So, that said, like I said, it's right beneath Ralph Breaks the Internet. The more I think about that film, the less I like it. So if any film is going to slide down my list over time, I think it's going to be that.
That's so sad, because the first film was so good.
It was, and it's the more I think about the second film, the more I feel like it kind of betrays the first film. Like there's some good comedy bits, and there's some strength to the character stuff, but as far as the story is concerned, I feel like it kind of betrays the first movie, and it bothers me more and more the more I think about that film.
It's the anti-Incredibles 2.
Yeah, it really is, and they didn't take a long time to make it either, you know.
Yeah, it was like 4 years, maybe
something
5?
Like that. Yeah. So yeah, like Spider-Verse and Aquaman and Ant-Man and the Wasp and Bohemian Rhapsody are all above Ready Player One for me, but I still really like the film. It comes in, I said I had 31 films here, so at 13, it's basically just above the middle of the pack. I want to watch it again. I want to get it re-ranked. But that's where I felt like it belonged when I re-ranked everything when I made this list. So moving on to my number 4 film, which is also your number 3 film, so we'll do it all at once, is the Marvel Studios' Black Panther. I of course always anticipate the Marvel films. I'm a little surprised that Black Panther is as high on my list than that it is, because I just kind of thought it would be like Doctor Strange or Ant-Man, where I like it, but it's only the movies about the characters that I really, really like, or the Avengers movies that really get ranked high. But man, just everything about the aesthetic and the way they created Wakanda and everything, to me, I think Black Panther for me is the film that, for a lot of other people, it's Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's like, oh, this one caught me out of left field, and I can't believe how much I love it. I like Guardians of the Galaxy. I like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 quite a bit, but Black Panther, to me, like, it was the one that caught me by surprise, and it's really high on my list for the year, and it's really high on my list of the MCU. So I think it's just outside of the top 5 for my MCU list. So yeah, and I think there was a really strong performance by both Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan, who I've started really liking Michael B. Jordan in just about everything. So,
oh, he's a great actor, and
he plays such a drastically different character here than he does in the Creed movies. So it's just like showing you how good of an actor he is by him not just turning in the same performance. What about you?
I'm just taking a quick look. Black Panther is my number 3 for 2018, but just taking a quick look, and it's number 6 all time for the MCU for me. This was a film where I'm kind of surprised that it finally got made, because they have been trying for like 15 years to get this. No, not even. They were actually trying for like 20 years, because there was talk about doing it back in the early to mid 90s. So this film has been in development hell, or had been, for a couple of decades. And I never thought they were actually ever going to get around to making it. But the thing is, Black Panther is a character that I've always been attracted to since I was a child. He was a character that I never really read much of the Black Panther comics, but he was a character that I always liked him in his appearances, and I always thought he had such a cool look and an interesting dynamic and situation, and it was always a character that I really, really liked, even though I very rarely got exposed to the character.
Right. I mean, he's African ninja guy with super technology.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and he's a super genius too. I mean, that is really cool. He's basically Black Ninja James Bond.
Right.
Crossed with Batman.
Right.
And it's just really, really cool. And it's Black Panther. It's incredibly simplistic costume design. But Black Panther is one of my favorite costumes. I'm talking about the classic Jack Kirby design.
Yeah.
Is one of my most favorite costumes, because it's so simple and it's such a striking silhouette.
I kind of like him with the little short cape in the comics better, but I totally get what you're saying.
I like the cape, but man, I love the look without the cape, where he's basically looks like he's wearing the sweater with the gloves and the boots.
Mm-hmm.
With the claws, and he's got just the mask with the pointed ears and just the eye slits, and that's it. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't know the Black Panther was supposed to be a black man. When I was a kid, I just thought like that he was just really cool looking, and it could be anyone under there.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily ever think it was a white guy, but I just thought it was such a cool image, and that really attracted me when I was like 4 or 5 years old. He looked like the bee's knees.
So Black Panther is number 8 on my MCU list. It is the highest film on the list that is not a Captain America film, an Iron Man film, a Spider-Man film, or an Avengers film. And being that Cap and Spidey are my 2 favorite Marvel characters, and Iron Man's up there, and the Avengers films obviously have, everybody involved. So yeah, he's much higher than any of the other like solo outings.
No, but the thing with the film though is I was completely sold and ready to go whenever the first trailer came out, because the whole aesthetic of the trailer with the music, the look of everything, I was completely on board. I know you were a little reticent whenever the trailers were coming out.
I said the trailers weren't doing anything for me, but I also have said repeatedly that I don't care for modern trailers.
Which is fair. Generally, I agree, but man, I first saw the first trailer for that. I thought it was going to be incredible. And what's great about the movie is the movie comes out, and you think you're and I kind of had a expectation about what I was going to get because it's a Marvel film, and it was still surprising me. There were still things that were surprising, character things that they did, character directions, and with the story, the plot, and I don't know. It's just I thought it was a fun film that created a. Okay, this was something I think I might have even mentioned this on one of our episodes before. That one of the problems I have with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that they don't always do a very good job of world building for the society.
Yeah, you've mentioned this. Go ahead, but you have mentioned this.
The Thor films, which I really enjoy, never really convinced me that the Asgardian world, Asgard, was a real society. Because all you ever really see is just, the royals walking around doing Shakespearean type dialogue in the throne room, and it does never felt like a real livable city. And then Wonder Woman comes out, and with just a few moments, it makes it with young little Princess Diana running through the streets, makes it come alive as a real place with real people with real jobs. I don't know if jobs is the right word, but real places in the Amazon world. And then Black Panther comes out, and it's exactly the same thing. It felt like a real place to me. Wakanda felt like a real place that, watching the movie, I want to visit. It's someplace I want to go to. So I was like completely enthralled by this society they created. And then the characters were so vividly realized and multidimensional. I have one problem with one character that I thought was one-dimensional, but other than that, everyone else is basically really built up. I was like, just based on the trailer, I thought that Okoye was going to be kind of a one-dimensional, just the badass tough chick, kind of the Michelle Rodriguez type role. And I was completely surprised at how multi-dimensional the character was in the actual film, with a lot more to her personality. And she ended up being my favorite character and my favorite performance in that film. And yeah, I don't know. Everything about Black Panther is just incredible to me. It's like a sumptuous feast of just visual and oral, and the look, the sounds, everything is just gorgeous to look at. I mean, it's a great movie. And
we'll see. We'll see if this happens with Captain Marvel and Endgame. But it was very interesting having them get Black Panther be in the theaters and be a thing, and like we immediately get another taste of all of these characters in Infinity War, like a month later, you know.
I want to see more of these characters. It's just, Black Panther does not look like any other Marvel Cinematic Universe film, and it's one of the most. It is probably the most vibrant and alive to me. Yeah, I just enjoy the heck out of that movie.
Yeah, it's a great film. It's one that I constantly put on at work because like everybody likes it, and everyone can dig on it being on. So where are we at? Because that was my number 4, your number 3. So then my number 3, and we're gonna go into my top 3 here, and two surprised me and one doesn't. So my number 3 was A Star Is Born, which I basically just took my mom to see because she wanted to see it, and I ended up really, really loving this movie. We talked on a previous episode when I saw it about the emotional impact of this movie. I ended up really liking the music. I hope Bradley Cooper gets some sort of recognition in the award season for directing and acting, because he was incredible at both, and Lady Gaga was really good as well. I kind of wish I had seen it twice in the theater, and I'm kind of desperately waiting for it to come out on Blu-ray because I want to see it again at this point. I think it comes out sometime in February. I know you haven't seen it, so it's kind of hard for us to fully discuss it, but I was completely surprised by how much I liked this movie and how much of an effect it had on me. And, like, where I went out and bought the soundtrack like immediately, and for a good stretch of 2018, just could not stop thinking about the movie.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to eventually seeing this movie, and I'm definitely certain I am going to see it. Everything I've heard about it just makes it sound incredible, and all the praise I've heard for Lady Gaga, I really want to see her performance in the film.
Yeah, she was really good. It's funny because it kind of turned my mom into a Lady Gaga fan. And I think it was Christmas Eve. She was watching a Christmas concert with her and Tony Bennett, just because she wanted to see what she was like doing regular music after seeing the movie. Because I think all she knew of Lady Gaga was kind of the press image from 5 years ago, where she was all the crazy stuff.
Yeah, like the meat dress,
right?
Stuff like that. No, I get you.
So yeah, that's my number 3. What is your number 2?
Well, my number 2 is the one that we've already discussed, and that's The Incredibles 2. Yeah, I'm trying to think of where we can go with this one. Yeah, like, as I said, it's a great companion piece to the first film. One of the things I really loved about this movie is that it really expanded on Elastigirl, who is my favorite character from the franchise. And whereas the first film, has a lot, Elastigirl has a lot in the first film, but narrative-wise, the focus tends to be more on Mr. Incredible, Bob.
The first movie is more Mr. Incredible's movie, whereas this movie is more her movie.
Right. And we got, oh man, yeah, I love Elastigirl so much, and these movies to me just show how awesome having stretchy powers can be. Usually, characters with stretchy powers kind of almost get mocked in adaptations, made to look really lame. Just look at Elongated Man on The Flash. I like the character on The Flash. I think he's fun and he's entertaining. But most of the time, it's basically boils down to, Elongated Man is gross because he inflates himself and he turns fat and people make fun of him. Hey,
and he's kind of venerated on that show compared to how Reed Richards has been treated in 3 movies.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's like they can't get the idea that elastic powers would be incredible. No pun intended. And Elastigirl, it's just, they keep finding inventive ways to showcase her abilities. Like the whole business with her on I'm trying to remember what it's called, the Elasti Cycle.
I think it's Elasticycle.
Where it did, the cycle disconnects into 2 pieces that join just by her stretching her body, so it's zipping all in different directions as she's driving everywhere. And she ends up in the tunnel and she's just spinning around on it. The stuff with jumping on, using herself to like slingshot manhole sewer covers and that. It's just, they're always finding inventive things to do with the powers rather than just stretching and inflating, which is what the Fantastic Four movies and The Flash does.
Right.
And what I really liked is that the movie really expanded and gave us a much more insight into her character, because the first one was basically Helen as the stay-at-home mom fighting for her kids, but it's basically her dealing with worries of like relationship stuff and all that. This is the first one where we get her flat out as the big hero, and that runs for like 2/3 of the film.
I mean, part of the first movie is the whole dynamic of that opening scene where Bob says he'd like to settle down and raise a family, and Helen says, she wants to keep going out and doing bigger and better things. And then, of course, when everything happens that happens, they have the opposite opinions. So
Right.
she kind of doesn't want to go back to being an adventurer. And they even at the beginning of this movie, they're like sort of, she doesn't like the idea that it's got to be her to do this. But then once she starts performing at a high level again, she remembers what she loved about it.
Right. It's, just so cool. But what's great is that's basically the focus for the first 2/3 of the film. But then all of a sudden, the last act the big heroes end up becoming the kids.
Right.
Plus, we also get expanded stuff with Frozone showing how awesome his abilities are. And I just is the movie necessary compared to the first one? I don't know. But they expand and start to world build so much in the second film that I just love it. I don't know if it's better than the first. I think I still like the first film more than the second, but they just gave me so much more of what I wanted or what I would have wanted, and gave me stuff I never thought I wanted in this film. And I just love it. It's just a fun, entertaining, one of the best superhero movies of last several years.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the first one better. But what I was saying about Black Panther applies here. As far as like we got more of those characters in Infinity War, we get more of all of the Incredible characters, and it's nothing that we get in Incredibles 2 betrays any of the characters from how they were portrayed in Incredibles 1. It just gives us more of those characters. So, several times, and I can think of franchises that came out much closer to each other and whatnot, or had several more movies, where it's like you have a character. I'll point to the Austin Powers movies. Like, they are what they are, and I enjoy them, but everything is set up in that first movie, and it's almost like everyone is a different character in the second movie, and then everyone is a different character again in the third movie,
Right.
just so that they can.
In those films alone, they're just recycling the same thing that worked in the first film.
Right.
Whereas with the Incredibles 2, it's that it stays consistent with who the characters were in the original film. It just gives us more and expands and makes the world larger.
Mm-hmm.
And which really makes me excited. I hope that Brad Bird comes up with an idea and gives us a third film, and that we don't have to wait 14 years for it.
Yeah, like I said, it shouldn't be as good as it was. There's so many ways that this movie could have gone wrong, and it didn't.
Yeah, get back into Wreck-It Ralph territory with that.
Yeah, ugh. What bothers me about that one is it's the more I think about the film as time goes on, Like, in the moment, a lot of the stuff worked, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. But then when I start thinking about what happened in that film, I'm like, wait, why did this happen? That doesn't make any sense, All right, my number 2, speaking of sequels made a long time after their originals, was my big shocker of the year, and I already talked about Star is Born. Mary Poppins Returns. Now, I'll talk about this probably a little bit more later, because when we talk about what we have been doing, because I saw it right before Christmas. My intent was, I heard some buzz on it. I was never like a huge Mary Poppins fan, but I, as a kid, was always a big Disney Studios fan, and I think I recognize, even as a kid, that it was probably the best of the Disney Studios movies. I hadn't seen it in years, the first one. We watched it a little before I went to see the second one. I hadn't seen it in years. We talked about this on the last show. I probably had seen it with my niece when she was little, and if I didn't, then it was probably 10, 15 years before that I saw it. Again, there's no reason why this movie should work. I was so amazed how everything in this movie 100% absolutely worked. Like, it's a sequel. It's kind of a remake in that it's kind of a remake in the way that like the Star Wars prequels kind of parallel what happened in the original movies.
Right.
Like there's some parallels to the situations and her interaction with the characters. However, like the kids are completely different. The kids are quote unquote wild and uncontrolled in the original, and they need someone to look after them. Um, I think I think I like this film better than the original, and I'll tell you why. Because the kids in this movie I can relate to because they're being raised by a single parent, and they're taking the mentality of we need to help out because someone has to help out. And sort of Mary Poppins thing in this movie is, no, you're kids. You should be allowed to be kids, and everyone else needs to figure out everything so that you don't have to be the one taking the burden of the world on your shoulders when you're younger. And I don't know, coming from a divorced family, being raised by a single mother, a lot of that made sense to me as far as like I've said several times, like I kind of grew up overnight when I was 14 years old. So, so it all boils down to this, and they gave this away in the trailer, but without context, that Angela Lansbury in the film has a line where she says, "You've forgotten what it's like to be a child." I think that's what this whole movie is Disney reminding us, look, this is the kind of movie we used to make. This is the kind of movie you used to love. And we've all gotten away from this, but isn't it great that we can still do this and watch a movie like this and be like remembering what it's like to be a child watching these kind of movies. The soundtrack's great. All the songs are really good. It's just a ridiculously good film. And it completely surprised me that it was going to be as good as it was. 54 years after the original was made.
It's a long stretch of time.
I think I read on Wikipedia that it's one of the longest distances between original and sequel. So I'm kind of trying to figure out what might have been a longer period than 54 years.
I think I've heard about that one, but I can't remember what it was. No, Mary Poppins, the original, it's a film I liked as a kid. I still enjoy it. I think it's a good movie. But honestly, it was never really my favorite of the Disney live-action films growing up. As a kid, I always liked Darby O'Gill and the Little People and Swiss Family Robinson more. And I also really liked Bedknobs and Broomsticks as a child, which is kind of a pseudo sequel to Mary Poppins.
Yeah, I really like Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I really like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
I don't think I've ever seen Swiss Family Robinson. I have seen Darby O'Gill.
Swiss Family Robinson I used to see all the time as a kid because it aired so much on late night television in my area, and it used to pop up on I think it was the Sunday Wonderful World of Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Darby O'Gill I saw a lot as a kid simply because it starred Sean Connery, and my dad loves Sean Connery, so I saw it a lot. But yeah, Mary Poppins, yeah, I mean, it's one I liked as a kid, but I was never I never completely bought into Mary Poppins as being the greatest Disney film.
See, I think I felt more like there were other ones that I liked better, but I think something about me understood from a technical standpoint how Mary Poppins was a better film.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I understood the importance of the film and what the film meant for the studio and what it meant technologically. But there were other films I enjoyed more. That said, the songs in the original film were some of the best movie songs, I think. Because, when I was a kid, my older sister had a Walt Disney, music of Walt Disney LP, and we used to play that whenever I was really young, and it had, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And I think one or two of the other songs on it, and used to play those all the time. But the thing that really kind of got me is with the new one, which I have not seen. I want to see it. I really want to see it for Emily Blunt's portrayal. I heard she's good for that.
She's fantastic. She's fantastic in the movie.
Oh, she's fantastic in everything I've ever seen her in.
She kind of is, but yeah, she's great. So I've just found a list of movies and the longest time between sequels and whatnot. And I guess the winner is Fantasia. Fantasia 2000 came out 59 years and 48 days after the original Fantasia. There are several around Fantasia that are direct-to-video or television film sequels, which I don't really feel should count. I'm looking at theatrical here. Because Bambi is actually the longest, 63 years. But Bambi 2 is direct-to-video.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a television film or miniseries called Scarlet that was a sequel to Gone with the Wind.
Oh yeah, it was an adaptation to the sequel novel that I don't believe it was written by the original author, and that's the one that starred Timothy Dalton.
I wonder if that's considered an official sequel though. As far as theatrical releases, they also have Return to Neverland, 49 years, 10 days after Peter Pan.
I just want to say for the record that Scarlet is the film project that Timothy Dalton ultimately terminated his contract for James Bond over.
Okay.
Where he abandoned doing the Bond film because he got tired of waiting, and they were going through the legal hassle anyways, which is why there was a 6-year gap between License to Kill and GoldenEye. So he abandoned it, and he ended up because he was busy anyways doing The Rocketeer, then Scarlet.
They also have Return to Oz as an official theatrical sequel to Wizard of Oz. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
None of the original production company or anything is involved.
No, Return to Oz is an Oz film that it's not really a sequel to the Judy Garland film.
So yeah, Mary Poppins Returns. I've been listening to the soundtrack a lot lately, and we have the same film at number 1. Imagine that.
Oh, what a shock.
Greatest superhero film of all time? No, I don't think so. Greatest superhero film of the year and greatest regular film of the year? Absolutely. Avengers Infinity War.
It's so funny to me because leading up to this movie, I was basically exhausted from Infinity War and Thanos build up, because this film was built up over 8 years?
Yeah, I mean,
they have been teasing and leading to this film for so long, and basically I just got exhausted from that.
Well, yeah, I guess if you count when Thanos got introduced at the end of Avengers, it's been 8 years. If you count the entire MCU, it's been 10 years.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about superhero fatigue on the show. We talked about me saying I wasn't too excited for the movie based on the trailers because I didn't think the trailers did anything. And
exactly. This is a case where the trailers, I did not care for the trailers at all. I mean, the trailers were fine, but they didn't show us anything that was unexpected or anything that really wowed me.
Right.
You know, the stuff they showed was fine. The action stuff looked good, but it looked like anything that we would have expected and nothing that we hadn't seen before. But man, going into the film, I was expecting to like it, but I was lukewarm, and I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I ended up actually enjoying it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic film.
It's funny because I to this day I still can't work out whether it actually functions properly as a standalone film.
I mean, I get that.
Whether or not in context, if you go into this movie without having seen any of the others, does it still work? Does the narrative actually make any sense if you don't know who everyone is? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I get that, and like my mom's kind of always like wanting us to watch more movies together because she just wants to do stuff with me, and she knows I like to watch movies. And this is on my list of like, I kind of wanted to watch this film, but do I want to have to watch all 19 other films first? And is she going to get anything if we don't watch all the other ones first? So
a year ago, I think it was January 1st, 2018, I went to my dad's place for supper.
Uh-huh.
And afterwards, my dad and I ended up watching 2 films that I brought with me. And I brought Wonder Woman, which he enjoyed. And I brought Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, because I think it's better than the first one, and I wanted him to see this one in particular. And he got it. He didn't need to have seen the earlier one. He got the film. He got who the characters were right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And he really enjoyed it. He liked Wonder Woman, but he liked Guardians 2 much more because, according to him, it was funnier. Plus, I had Kurt Russell.
Well, yeah, that'll do it.
the thing with Infinity War is I can't figure out if the movie functions as an individual entity on its own and whether it makes any sense narrative wise. But it's just, in the end, it has so much incredible stuff going on in it that honestly, I don't care.
Yeah, I
don't
think
know
it does. I think it does maintain itself as a standalone film. I had the same question when the first film first came out. I remember saying even on this show, I haven't decided if it's just a great spectacle or if it's actually a good movie. But
Right.
in time, I've decided that it is in fact a good movie. And yeah, I can point to so many things in this movie that are just like utterly satisfying as a fan of these characters, as a fan of this property, as a fan of Marvel Comics to begin with. You know, they get so much of it right, and there's so many moments where you're like, you just either mark out moments or whatever you want to call it, where you're just giddy with, like when Captain America shows up, it's great. When it first cuts to the Guardians in space, it's great. When the Guardians first duke it out with the Avengers, and you get the classic Marvel, the heroes just ran into each other and they don't know that the other guys are the heroes, and so they have to have a brief fight. That's great. Like, and then all the way up to like Spider-Man's death and
Spoilers.
spoiler, and Tony Stark basically realizing that he messed everything up again, and all of that is so good.
Yeah, I think ultimately it works on its own, but I think if you have been informed by having watched all the previous films, it just adds more texture to it. But I do think it works as its own individual film because the performances are all there. Characters are all introduced. We get glimpses into who their personalities are before the events start to happen, and I think it does work. If ever there was a movie that was made for the term epic, this one probably is it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings films, and that's a good high watermark to compare something epic to. But like, just some of the stuff that happens in this film, and just the Battle of Wakanda on its own, it's so epic. So the other list that we're going to do is our top 5, basically anything else from 2018, and that can be comics, TV, video games, whatever, what have you. We have a couple of things bouncing around that we're sharing on this list, but we'll get to that. So why don't you start with your number 5?
Oh, gosh, I did not do very much reading this past year, so I don't really have anything on my list, and as I mentioned before, I'm not really a gamer, so I don't have any other stuff. So my top 5 has basically just turned into a list of different TV shows that I really enjoyed this past year. I tried to keep it down from ones that we've seen before or ones we've discussed in the past, but yeah, I'm gonna do my best to try to get this. Number 5 is Charmed. This surprised me. I was actually going to talk about this when we eventually covered what we've been doing last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But since I have it in, we altered the format a bit for this episode, I guess I'm talking about it now. While I was really sick in bed with the cold or flu or whatever the heck I've been fighting last weekend, I was checking out some of the on-demand stuff that we have on our television because I wasn't really able to go online very much because my eyes, and I just didn't really feel like it, frankly. So I was looking for something easy to watch, and what I ended up finding was that the W Network, which is a cable network in Canada, has on their on-demand. Apparently, they are the ones who air the new Charmed reboot TV show in Canada.
Okay.
And I found out that they had all 9 episodes that have aired this fall before the Christmas break. So I ended up deciding, what the heck, I'm going to watch it. I was never really a big fan of the original series. I'd seen the occasional episode, but I never watched it with any regularity. If in fact, if I've that show was on for what, like 8-9 years, and I think maybe I've seen like 2, maybe 3 episodes entirely. But I just thought, there had been a lot of promotion for the remake, so I thought, well, you know what, I'll give it a chance. It's gonna have horror stuff. It's gonna have, like, I don't know, presumably demons and stuff like that. So I thought maybe we'll get some monsters. So I put it on, ended up watching all 9 episodes, and was instantly in love with the TV show. I could not get over how much I actually enjoyed it. I don't know if you've been following anything that has to do with this show.
I mean, I know it's on. I see commercials for it occasionally when I'm watching The Flash. I don't think I've seen an episode of the original, although I'm familiar with what it is. So yeah, this isn't something that I've been paying attention to.
This was really getting pushed as basically being a feminist version of the Charmed, which is kind of weird whenever the original TV show was in itself feminist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about a show that used to star Alyssa Milano and Rose McGowan.
Right.
That was feminist. But this one also has the added thing where the characters are Latina. Although I understand there's a bit of controversy because 2 of the actresses are actually partially black and don't have any actual Latina heritage.
Okay.
But I don't know. It's like, it's not the main thing for the story. I thought it was going to be that those 2 elements were going to basically overpower the show based on how the show was promoted, and it doesn't. It's a fun character thing with 3 delightful characters. I honestly believe that if you watch the show, that you would actually like it, because I think the characters are basically within your wheelhouse of what you would like for, kind of like a young female hero type characters. There's one of the sisters in particular I think I'm assuming would be your favorite.
Okay.
And yeah, I really enjoyed it. The family dynamic, the characters, how they play off each other. It is very much defined as by being a post Me Too show.
Okay.
But I don't think it's the main thing. It's just a lot of it is just kind of like texture. But the dialogue's great. The acting is great. The characters are fun and lovable. We actually get genuine demons and monsters, which you don't always get in modern horror TV shows. And yeah, it's just I thought it was real. I was excited by how much I was enjoying watching the show, that I ended up telling my sister to watch it, and she was watching the episodes one after me in the other room. So I'd be watching get up to episode 5, and she's watching episode 4, and we're going, I was one ahead of each other over one day. Yeah, I was surprised. I think I have a new show.
Well, that's cool. I'm so far behind on all my other shows.
I figured that, but the thing is, I really would like you to try the first episode to see if you like it. Although I don't know how you'd be able to see it.
I'm sure it's on my on demand.
But because I think you would generally like it.
I'll have to look into it. Like I said, I'm so far behind on all my other shows that I'm remiss to start anything else. And I totally was going to catch up on everything while everything was on hiatus for the Christmas break. That hasn't happened at all.
I was planning on catching up on The Flash and Supergirl, and I've kind of decided that the 2 episodes I missed of both shows, I'm not going to bother with.
Well, I've missed a lot more than 2.
No, I get that, but I kind of came to the conclusion that whenever they come back, I'll just go with that. Because, quite frankly, next year I'm probably just going to end up getting them on Blu-ray anyways. I'll catch up on them then.
So my number 5, and it's further down the list on Derek's list, so we'll talk about it in a bit, but is Doctor Who Season 11, the first season of Doctor Who I've ever watched, or I guess series of Doctor Who that I've ever watched. Really just started watching it because I figured it was a good jumping on point. Again, kind of what you were just saying about with Charmed, do I need another show? But I'll be totally honest with you folks. Sometimes I watch things just to have content for the podcast. And I watched the first episode of this just so Derek and I could discuss it on the podcast. And I ended up really liking it and following it all year. We'll get more into it when we talk about it on Derek's list, but I just really like all the characters is the bottom line. And it just kept me coming back for more. And it was, I'm not going to take the point of view of like, oh, is this what I've been missing all this time or whatnot, because I haven't gone back and dug into any of the old Doctor Who stuff yet. I'm sure that's going to happen eventually. But this combination of characters and the storytelling that we got this series, I really enjoyed. So
yeah, the thing, my cat just fell off my bed. Did you hear that?
I did.
I don't know what the hell he was doing. He just went right off. You okay? He's between the bed and the wall. He's looking up at me. Hey, buddy. Gosh, no. The thing with Doctor Who is, it's been around for as of this year, it's going to be 56 years. And they have changed showrunners and actors and directions and producers so often. Every few years. Through all that time, you are always going to get periods where you might not like the direction it's going, and you might lose interest in the show. Not necessarily, but it does happen. You're going to end up with periods and times where you like the show more than others. So, because you like the current series that just aired with the 13th Doctor, Series 11, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to. If you go back and watch, like, say, the Matt Smith era or the David Tennant or Peter Capaldi, you might not care for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very distinct possibility. Then again, you might. I don't know. It's really subjective. This is one of the things I find so funny with people that have been freaking out over the direction this year, and with the casting of Jodie Whittaker and with Chris Chibnall coming in as the producer and showrunner, and people acting as if this is the worst Doctor Who has ever been, and acting as if the show is irreversibly destroyed. And it's like, well, if you don't like it, fair enough. 3-4 years from now, it's going to be a different Doctor and it's going to be a different producer. So just wait. There have been periods of the show where I've lost interest and could barely bring myself to watch the show, only to end up getting surprised. Because, I've said this on the show before. Every time I get a season where I'm disappointed by Doctor Who, I still give the next season or series a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know. I didn't care for much of... Well, I liked the first series that Matt Smith did, but his second and third I didn't really care for. And then Peter Capaldi's first and second I didn't really care for. But I still gave Peter Capaldi's third series a chance back in 2017 and ended up loving it. And then I gave Jodie Whittaker a chance, and I loved it too. And I don't understand why people act as if something is irreversibly destroyed like Doctor Who when it's not. I've made the comment before. It's like the weather. If you don't like it, just wait a while. It's going to change.
Right. So what is your number 4?
My number 4 is another TV show, The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell. Now, this was just a delight.
Yeah, I really liked the show. Not enough for it to make my list because my list is a little bit more than just TV. I think if we were doing just a TV list, it would be on my list. But we both had kind of followed her for a few years anyway.
On social media, yes.
Yeah, and then it was like, oh, she's getting a show? That's interesting. And then like the show was everything I would have expected her show to be, and I loved it.
Oh, gosh. And then we find out, Henson's doing puppets and that for the TV show.
Right.
And it's going to be a macabre Tim Burton type, Martha Stewart living type thing. I don't know. I'm not really sure what to say about it other than it was fun, it was entertaining, it was delight. We only got, what was it, 6 episodes?
That sounds right. 6 or 8. I think it was 6.
Yeah, I think it was 6. I wish we had gotten more, but I'm glad that we got what we did. I don't know if they've announced anything yet, but I'm hoping it's coming back for a second season.
Yeah, I have not seen anything about another season. Well, let's look. They finally it was 6 episodes. I'm not seeing anything about they're getting another season called for yet, unfortunately. But
Is it still listed as pending?
no, it just says 1 season, 6 episodes, but it doesn't say it was canceled or anything like that. So.
Well, I hope they get a second season because it was delightful, and I want more.
And I kind of want to learn to cook some of that stuff.
I don't know. Some of it's really intimidating looking.
All of it's really intimidating looking.
That's fair.
All right. So my number 4 is the continuing Batman series by Tom King from DC Comics. When Rebirth started, I read the first few issues by Tom King, and I was like, these are good, but it's nothing grabbing me. And I actually didn't read it for a while. I jumped back in a little bit when they started the War of Jokes and Riddles, which was like in the 20s, but I barely read any of that. Like, I read the first few setup issues, and I was like, there's stuff going on, and I think I missed out on too much or whatever. But, that big wedding issue on the 4th of July, I wanted to be caught up for that, so I read like the couple of preludes to that, and then I've not missed anything since. And man, is he just crafting this giant 100-issue amazing story. And because it's a DC Rebirth title and we're getting 2 issues a month, it's not like the 120-some issue story of Invincible that took 13, 14 years, or, Walking Dead, or some of these other ones that take forever to get done. Like, he's gonna finish his 100-issue storyline in not that long of time.
No, it's very much streamlined.
Yeah, it's gonna be like right about 2 years to do it. No, that's not right. That's not how math works. But but it is streamlined. It is like
it should be 5 years, I think.
We're already to issue 60, I think. So like we're getting there, and I'm starting to realize now, because stuff started happening, where I realize, there's stuff from the first 20 issues or so that I haven't read that I need to read, because stuff's getting referenced back, And so I'm going to have to eventually pick up... I have the first trade. I'm going to have to pick up the first couple of trades that I don't have and start reading it so I can get the complete picture. But I'm just really liking... Like, he gets how to write every one of those characters. And I don't feel like it's better than the Scott Snyder run. But Snyder's run was shorter and much more... here's a story, and here's another story, and here's another story. Whereas this is all one big connected thing.
This sounds much more, comparative-wise, more similar to what Grant Morrison was doing over 5 years.
It does. It reminds me of Morrison's run. It frankly reminds me of the way things were done on, say, Stan Lee's run on Spider-Man, or Brian Michael Bendis' run on Ultimate Spider-Man, where the early stuff was, we're just setting up who these characters are, but then we get into this, integrated continuity, all the stuff leading up to the wedding was great. The double date issue with Superman and Lois Lane, the stuff post the wedding, he just teamed up with Penguin, was really good. Bane's return, because the thing that I kind of knew was going on, but I hadn't read, and then now finally starting to see it come back in the more recent issues, was that he was trying to make Bane into the ultimate, like, be all end all Batman villain. And I kind of see what he's doing, and I kind of think it might end up working. So, but the issue with Catwoman fighting the Joker, the Best Man issue before the wedding was fantastic. There's just so many good issues over the 20 or so that I've read that I just cannot. This is the book I can't wait for every month. It is not the best comic I am reading right now, but the best comic I am reading right now is not on nearly the regular schedule that this is. So we'll get to that later on my list. But yeah, Tom King's run on Batman. it just barely beat out Bendis's run on Superman for me. And there's more of that Bendis run because he's doing multiple titles. But this is it's some of the best Batman I've ever read.
Well, Bendis's run on the Superman titles, they're no longer bi-monthly, are they?
No, yeah, you're right there. Yeah, they're monthly now. But,
so he's still writing the same amount of material.
Yeah, you're right.
It's spread over 2 series.
Right, and it's not one continuous story because he's writing 2 stories because there's one story going in Action and one story going in Superman. So
I eventually I have got to catch up on the Rebirth trades and start getting the Bendis trades.
Well, the Bendis trades haven't even started yet, so other than the Man of Steel miniseries, which was the prelude to all this, the Bendis trades haven't even started yet. I think they just hit 6 on both Superman and Action this past month in December. Yeah. So
I do have the Man of Steel trade paperback in my Amazon cart, but I haven't gotten around to ordering it.
Man of Steel was enjoyable, very much so. So
hey, don't bite that. I'll
bite what I like.
Falls against the radiator, or now he's biting my cord.
Hey, it looks like we have the same thing at number 3.
We do.
Although you have 2 things at number 3, because you type.
And that's because I screwed up.
So yeah, he's changing it on the run sheet as we speak because I pointed it out.
No, it's fixed. No, it's because the thing I moved to number 2 was originally my number 3, and I just forgot to change the number.
So both of our number 3 was Glow Season 2.
This show just gets better and better.
It's so good. I love it so much.
It works as a comedy, but it also works as a drama, but it also works as a slice of life for a wrestling show.
And it also works as an 80s nostalgia thing.
Yeah, it's firing on all these different cylinders.
And Ruth has become one of my favorite characters in anything. Like, the drama in this season was really amped up versus the first season, I think.
Oh, definitely.
And that's not a detriment. That's not to speak against it. You know, so much stuff going on that I really, really enjoyed. All of the characters are just great to watch, and like even like I don't know, like Debbie might be a terrible person, but she's a fascinating character to watch.
I'm still gonna go with what I was talking about whenever we were discussing this back in the summer, is that I genuinely like Debbie. I think but the problem is she has this one aspect of her personality where she doesn't let certain things go, and it turns her into a terrible person.
Right.
I think she can be a good person. It's just she gets this like tunnel vision. It becomes terrible in certain aspects. Because there were episodes and there were moments and there were storylines with her character which were great and fun and kind of showed her as being a decent person.
Right.
But then anytime it has something to do with Ruth or her ex-husband, it's like she just loses all sense of scale and reality and just goes insane and becomes a monster. So it's almost like she's like a Jekyll and Hyde character.
Right.
Which, if anything, it makes her, as you said, fascinating.
Oh, yeah. She is a fascinating character.
Yeah, it's just really weird because I think she might be my favorite character. Simply because I enjoy, whenever she's good and whenever she's fun, she is really good and she is really fun. But whenever she goes psycho, she becomes even more fascinating. And it's just this weird dichotomy with this one character. She's simultaneously good and bad at the same time.
Right.
I think she's one of the most complex television characters I've seen ever. Because Ruth is much more simple. I don't mean that as a negative, but she is much more.
She's much more to the point.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily that she's a direct character. It's that her emotions and her sense of who she is and all that is very surface. Whereas Betty's character is just
Debbie.
I got mixed up because the actress is Betty Gilpin.
Right.
Her character is just like there are so many layers, and it's just weird. but yeah, they're very different characters, and I don't know. I'm very much looking forward to season 3 because I want to see how the two characters are going to play off each other. If, as we seem to get promised at the end of season 2, that they have more of an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just really interested in seeing how the character dynamic between the two is going to evolve.
So we'll go to your number 2, which...
Yeah, my number 2 is Doctor Who Series 11, which we briefly touched on.
Right.
Your pick for number 5. Yeah, I don't know what to add. Jodie Whittaker, I was concerned. I've seen Jodie Whittaker in a few things leading into this, but I never anything that made me think that she could play an eccentric character of this scale.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I know her for the most is the science fiction horror action film Attack the Block.
Right.
In which she plays a nurse who ends up getting involved in the aliens attacking this inner city community. And she is just, I don't want to say she has a one-dimensional character, but she essentially ends up mostly playing the damsel in distress, and she's not a very proactive character.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure what to expect for her doctor, and I was, to say I was pleasantly surprised is an understatement, because I was blown away. I thought she just got the character right off the bat. The eccentric attitude, but there was nothing in her characterization of the doctor that was like out of the ordinary for what we know the doctor to be from like previous iterations. But she managed to also put her own spin on it, where the compassion got amped up and the character's empathy, and I just thought that she brings such a unique dynamic to the character. She's still very much the doctor. The doctor, there's no massive change. Doctor's still this weird person with the box, traveling through time and space, and I think her take has just been so fun. And then I wasn't sure at first on what I thought of the new companions, but I very quickly ended up loving Graham, who is easily my favorite. He's probably my favorite character in this series.
Oh yeah, I love Graham. He's great.
And Ryan and also I just blanked.
Yes. Ryan and Yaz, I wasn't sure about them at first, but after a couple of episodes, I started to get a feel for the characters, and by the end, I like them all. I am really looking forward to seeing them all return for the next series. Unfortunately, we got to wait till 2020 for that. Right.
Although they promise early 2020.
Well, we'll see about that. Hey, Derek, you know what this is? Can you hear this?
I hear you. Oh, yes. I think I know what that is.
That is me opening the first piece of Doctor Who merchandise that I have bought since becoming a fan. And that is a 13th Doctor Funko Pop that I picked up this week.
It is so weird to me that you finally...
Hey, I was never against it. I just...
Oh, I know. I remember a conversation you and I had a couple of years ago where you were considering picking up the 4th Doctor Funko Pop figure because you had it at the store, and you thought that you might get it just to have it as like a pop culture thing.
Right, yeah.
I was actually kind of disappointed you never actually got it.
Yeah, but he's still readily available, so... the
still
only thing...
Doctor.
What's that?
The Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor, is still my favorite.
As a non-Doctor Who fan before, it was the one that I recognized the most from anything else. So,
like The Simpsons.
But yeah, but whatever.
Yeah. No, I get that.
So, I like this. I like this little Funko Pop. It's cool that they got the little metal studs on the boots, where the laces are. I'm a little disappointed she's not holding a Sonic. I don't mind that she's not wearing the trench coat, but I'm a little disappointed she's not holding a Sonic.
Well, the trenchcoat version was a exclusive to a convention. I forget which one though.
Yeah, I think I knew that.
San Diego Comic-Con, but I'm not sure. The version that you just got, that you just opened, I have, but mine's still in the box. I actually have a few of the Funko Pop Doctors.
I might be going to San Diego this year. So, all those flippin' exclusives, I might actually get a crack at them this year.
I'm gonna have to find a way to convince you to get me something. Or not.
I don't know how I'm going to afford it yet.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it's looking like I'm going to be afforded the opportunity to be able to go. So I have to make the one thing work. You know, if I can go, I just got to figure out a way to come up with some money so I can afford stuff when I'm there.
Yeah, I just want to say, with regards to Doctor Who Series 11, one of the things I love most about it is that you and I can finally actually have an equal discussion on Doctor Who.
No, yeah,
It's no longer one-sided.
We did the one episode very early in the run of the show where you talked about everyone being angry about the casting of Jodie Whittaker, and like I was sitting here going, I had no idea what you were talking about. Like every reference or every other actor and blah 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 that you made reference to, I was like, I don't have any idea what he's talking about. But he obviously knows what he's talking about, so I'll let him carry this part of the show.
Yeah, that's the funny thing to me is I can't remember if I mentioned this on the show before, but I have always thought of myself as being almost a relatively new Doctor Who fan.
Yeah, you have mentioned this.
And when the truth of the matter is, I've been a fan for a long, long time. It's just, you know, yeah, I've been watching the reboot series since it started in 2005. That alone is 13 years ago, or 14 years ago as of this year. But then I used to watch Doctor Who when I was a kid. Granted, it wasn't with any regularity, but I've always been aware of the characters and all this stuff. So, yeah, it's just... But it's kind of... That's one of the things that's kind of like reinvigorated my interest in the franchise is... Now, not only am I really enjoying Series 11 and Jodie Whittaker as the character, but I'm also getting to see it kind of fresh through you. So it's just Doctor Who's become a lot more fun again.
That's cool that that's happened. Sorry. And we'll talk in a little bit about the New Year special, which I really enjoyed. Yeah, like I said, I'd like to go back and maybe explore some of the older stuff and see what I like and see what I don't like. I have a quick question for you though, and I was going to bring this up when we talked about Mary Poppins again. But so is the Doctor a superhero? Like, would you consider the Doctor a superhero?
Honestly, I do. I do pretty much consider the Doctor a superhero. Although I don't know if most people would. Maybe the best way to put it is just that the Doctor is an adventurer. But there are so many parallels between the Doctor and Superman, or the Doctor and like Martian Manhunter, or any other characters. He's a character who has this incredible origin, incredible abilities, and just goes around every place and helping people who need help. I don't know. That sounds like a superhero to me.
I bring this up because I read a great article on Sci-Fi Channel's website about Mary Poppins being a great superhero film, and I was having a discussion with somebody at work where it's like, so is Mary Poppins a superhero? Is Luke Skywalker a superhero? You know, obviously you can loosely or tightly define superhero whatever way feels comfortable to you, but I think generally speaking, a lot of most people hear superhero and I think cape and tights, comic book origin, comic book is their first medium type characters.
But the thing is, right, and I get that, but with the Doctor, I think it's much more tangible because the Doctor has a secret identity, and has an assumed name that he travels under using, which is the Doctor. But it's not his real name. We don't know his real name. I hope we're never going to know his real name.
Right.
We don't know his real identity. It's cloaked in shadows and darkness and mystique. But then he's got a base of operations. The TARDIS is essentially a moving Fortress of Solitude Batcave, and the Batmobile all in one.
Right.
And he's going, and everywhere he goes, he stops to help people in need. And it's like the Doctor has elements of Superman, has elements of the Lone Ranger.
Right. And characters like the Shadow and the Lone Ranger and the Green Hornet predate superheroes, but are kind of generally accepted to be superheroes.
Right.
But, like, would you consider King Arthur a superhero? Would you consider Sherlock Holmes a superhero? They have a lot of the traits.
Sherlock Holmes, I could see Sherlock Holmes being considered a superhero. King Arthur, I don't think it works and the same thing with Luke Skywalker, because they're very, very much a product of their genre, where it's much more straightforward.
Okay.
Whereas the Doctor is literally doing what Superman does, which is traveling around the world and the universe, helping people in need.
Well, then what about somebody like Flash Gordon?
Well, Flash Gordon I've always considered a superhero.
Okay, what about Indiana Jones?
Indiana Jones I consider an adventurer.
Okay. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer on this. I just thought it was an interesting little sidebar.
I've never really thought about this very much, but if I had to think about it, the Doctor is a superhero. Because there are so many elements of superhero that are in the Doctor. Because the Doctor shows up as a wanderer in a new place, finds out that there's some evil going on, and he fights supervillains. The Daleks are supervillains. The Cybermen are supervillains.
I don't know. You kind of just described the man with no name. So it's an interesting subject.
The Doctor also has superpowers.
Yeah, but I don't consider superpowers to be a necessity to be defined as a superhero.
They're not.
So
they are not. But the Doctor has superpowers.
Also, Luke Skywalker has superpowers.
Right.
So
right, but Luke Skywalker is not outside of the old Marvel comics from the early '80s. Is not traveling from place to place helping people in need.
Well, he is in the current comics too. So
it's the Doctor is flat out going around our Earth and other places that helping people in need, rescuing people in trouble, fighting actual supervillains.
Right.
The Master's a supervillain.
No, and
has great, unusual powers and abilities. Has incredible technology, like Superman or Batman or the Fantastic Four. Has their own secret headquarters and base and vehicle to travel around in. As far as I'm concerned, the Doctor is a superhero.
Hearing her say this year, the Earth is under my protection, which she says a couple of times this year, really lends credence to this topic. All right.
Well, here, okay. Things are a little bit different since the Time Lords have been brought back, but the thing for most of the revival series, the Doctor was the last survivor of a destroyed and doomed world that went out to protect the galaxy and specifically Earth from alien invasions and threats. And it's all Superman stuff.
Right.
I don't understand how they have never made a Superman Doctor Who crossover team-up comic. Because that is something that should be done, and it's something I would buy.
That's just all licensing, man.
Yeah.
Who has the Doctor Who rights in comics right now versus...
Well, yeah, but the Doctor's teamed up with Star Trek.
Yeah, but I think the company that currently publishes the Doctor Who comics also has the Star Trek rights. So, I think. I'm not positive about that, but... All right, so moving on.
Your number 2.
My number 2 is Spider-Man, the video game for PlayStation 4. Definitely my favorite video game of the year. One of the best video games I've ever played. As far as these big open world action adventure type games. You know, we had also Red Dead Redemption this year, which I'm starting to play right now, and I'm getting more into it now. I kind of was slow getting into that game, but this game is up there with I've said Arkham Asylum is my favorite of the Batman Arkham games. Although I think Arkham City mechanically is a better game. I don't care for the story that as much. So I would put Arkham Asylum as the perfect Arkham game. This is right up there with it, and I just recently finished it last week, and I think versus all the Arkham games, this had a really satisfying overall story, whereas the Arkham games kind of more had a setup and a series of events that happen at various points throughout the game, but not necessarily a story, or it's just a weaker story than this. This was a really good Spider-Man story. This was a really good portrayal of Spider-Man. There were some great Spider-Man moments throughout the game. And as I mentioned on previous episodes, the gameplay itself was incredibly fun, incredibly intuitive. You learn things that you could kind of just brawl through guys or web sling any old way, and you'll get stuff done, but not at the most effective way. But if you're really paying attention, you'll learn to be a better web slinger. You'll learn to be a better fighter. You'll learn to be a better Spider-Man the more you play the game. To the point that I even said one of the later boss fights I thought was a little too easy, because I figured it out immediately what I was supposed to do, and it wasn't that difficult to do. Now, the final fight, and I won't say who the final fight's with in case you're not that far along in the game, the final fight was one of the hardest ending boss fights I've ever played in a video game. And many of the fights in this game, as far as boss fights are concerned, are staged, where like you fight the villain a particular way until you get him his life bar to a certain point, and then the situation changes a little, and then you fight him in a different way until his life bar gets to a certain point, and then you fight him in a third way until his life bar gets depleted and you win the fight. There's a lot of fights like that in this game. The ending fight is like that. However, the difference is, in the earlier fights, if you made it past the first stage of the fight and you were defeated, and then you hit continue, you'd come back at the start of the second stage of the fight. The final fight made you do the whole thing from scratch every time, and man, it was all timing. And there were times where it was like I'd blow through the first two parts and then get quickly defeated in the third part, and there were times when I couldn't get past the first part just because I couldn't get the timing to work.
Actually, it sounds pretty frustrating.
It wasn't, though. It was like it was one of those. It was like really testing yourself to see what you're capable of doing. And when I would mess up, it wasn't frustrating because I would realize that it wasn't the game wasn't being cheap with me. It was all on me if I messed up. Mm-hmm. So pulling it off, I think, felt more satisfying because I realized it was me getting better. Great game. Probably God of War got Game of the Year, and I didn't get to play God of War nearly as much as I wanted to, and it's still sitting there in my pile. And I think I'm really going to like Red Dead Redemption 2, so whether it actually ends up being the best game of the year for me, I don't know, but as far as playing it this year, it was the best game I played this year. It's the best game I've played in a very long time. So that's Spider-Man PS4.
At the very least, it sounds like the game you had the most fun playing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I kind of want to get the DLC and get the fifth story finished off, but I'm playing Red Dead right now, and I'm really getting into that, so I might wait a little bit for the DLC. So what's your number one there, Derek?
My number one, and I'm going to try to keep it a little bit succinct. I think I've gone a little bit long with some of my picks. But my number one for 2018 is The Haunting of Hill House. Now, the thing about this show, which is a new adaptation of Shirley Jackson's 1950s horror novel, The Haunting of Hill House, which has previously been made into a film directed by Robert Wise in 1963, I think,
mm-hmm.
and Jan de Bon in 1999, which was terrible. This is basically a complete reimagining of the novel. There's place names and character names are similar, but the circumstances of everything are completely reimagined, completely new. Mike Flanagan is the writer-director of this. He has done a couple of well-regarded horror films. Actually, several. I've only seen 2 of them though, but this ended up being something. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't it. And I mean, yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought. Okay, it had scares, it had ghosts, it had creepiness, it had all the stuff I would have wanted in a ghost haunting film or miniseries. But I was shocked at how much character and how much emotion was in this. And in the end, it ended up just being this like story of a family, and the conclusion, everything was just so satisfying. It was the most emotionally exhausting TV show I've watched in the last year, and the most satisfying, and I just thought it was brilliantly done. I think they're going to be doing a second season. I don't know how they can do a second season other than to bring in all new characters in a completely different period and setting, except for keeping the house. But yeah, I just thought this was brilliant filmmaking, and for television, it was just incredible performances, incredible writing, incredible characters. And yeah, if you like ghosts, if you like horror movies, if you like haunted stuff, if you like family dramas, this had all of that. And I don't know, it was brilliant. I greatly recommend it. It's only, what, 8, 10 episodes? I think 10 episodes. So
are they hour or are they half hour?
They're about an hour.
Okay.
It's something I greatly recommend. I just thought it was one of the best things I have seen in the last year.
Yeah, it was, I mentioned when you brought this up before that it was on my list of things to watch. Quite frankly, with me getting sick in the fall, I really put the block on half the stuff that I was watching and reading and whatnot. So I'm playing catch up right now, but I still wouldn't mind getting around to watching this.
Yeah, there's only 10 episodes, so I really recommend watching it whenever before the shows start to return.
Mm-hmm.
If you could take like a 1 week to catch up on everything, watch a couple of episodes each day, I think it's well worth it.
Okay. My number 1 is a comic, and is the one comic that I'm reading that's better than Batman right now, and that is Doomsday Clock by Jeff Johns. Unfortunately, it's every other month, but I will say what I've been saying the entire time that the series has been out. It is a sequel to Watchmen that I didn't know that I wanted. And I am amazed that a sequel to Watchmen can be this good. And I've also said that if Jeff Johns doesn't do anything else in the comic industry besides having created the Mime and the Marionette, then his legacy is sound. And he's done plenty else, and he's done some stuff since. But now that Johns is writing regularly again, his first issue of Shazam was really fun. That Three Jokers thing is going to be coming soon. But man, Doomsday Clock, like every word of it, it's a tribute to Alan Moore, but it's its own thing, and it's the art's fantastic. And Johns is not Alan Moore. That's not even meant as an insult. It's Alan Moore is probably the best writer in comics. Johns is an amazing writer, but he doesn't write similarly to Alan Moore. So it's interesting that it's a very Watchmen style book, but it feels like a Jeff Johns book and not like he's just trying to do Alan Moore.
Right. Johns has his own voice, and he doesn't have an Alan Moore type dialogue or writing. It's very much distinct. So the very idea that it could still work in context of what Moore did is incredible.
Yeah, there are a handful of moments in the series that we've seen so far, and I don't want to give any of them away, where it's just like, man, I don't know how you convey that moment in the comics medium without having motion or sound or a soundtrack. Like, there's cinematic moments that totally come across how they're supposed to come across on the printed page. And I'm not saying no other comic's done that before. Quite a few of the comics that I hold in high regard as some of the best comics ever are able of doing that. But those are, how many comics are published each month? Those cinematic moments that are so memorable that they stick with you forever probably exist. There's probably less than 50 of them that I can think of in the amount of comics I've read, and I read and I buy 10 to 15 comics a week. So, and they publish 60 to 70 comics per week. So, from between the main two companies. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it is a great book. It is everything the comic medium should be. And I cannot wait every month or every other month, I suppose, to see where it's going, because 2 issues ago, when Dr. Manhattan finally showed up, it got so interesting, and I thought they were going to immediately follow up the crazy thing that he presents in the story, but the next issue didn't even touch on it because other stuff was going on. I think they're up to 8, and it's only going to be 12, so we're getting near the end. But, that's going to be a couple of months because it's every other month now.
Yeah, I got the first issue when it was released, but at this point I'm essentially trade waiting it. I'm waiting till the entire thing is collected before I'm going to be able to pick it up. But it's something that I am really looking forward to finally reading. Although I imagine that might not be until the end of this year, if not next year.
Like I said, there's 3 issues left, but at the scheduled rate they're going, that's 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a while.
So that's...
maybe I'll get it for Christmas next year.
So that's my top 5 other things from 2018, yours as well. We're going to quickly hit our most anticipated things. Now, I just want to bring up that last year we looked at like what was coming out, and we were like, there's a major movie every week. There's a major movie that we want to see at least every month. Like, we were overloaded with stuff last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not this year. That's the only way I can put it. I'm looking at the release schedule of movies coming out this year, and it's like, there's a new Charlie's Angels movie, and it looks absolutely terrible. And, there is a 18-year after the fact sequel to Sam Jackson's Shaft movie from 2000. I didn't realize that was coming out.
This is the first I've ever heard.
I was looking at the, I did 2019 in film on Wikipedia just to see all the release listing. And I saw all these films that, like, I had no idea that they were coming out. There's a movie, it's either called Shaft or Son of Shaft, but it is a direct sequel to the 2000 Shaft movie, which is itself a sequel to the original Shaft series, and it's about basically Shaft the Third, although Richard Roundtree and Sam Jackson are in it. There's that remake of Child's Play coming out, or is it a remake, or is it I guess it is a remake. There's
We're probably the sequel to It in September.
We get the sequel to It. There's probably the first Batman movie that I won't bother to see opening day in a theater, in that Joker movie that's coming out.
Oh gosh, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I just could not care about on this list. So all that said, and that's just movies. All that said, let's talk about the stuff we are interested in.
The funny thing about this is we have the same 5 things on our 2 lists.
Yeah, in a very slightly different order. So,
right. I don't know. Do we go with your list then?
Yeah, we'll do my list, and you can point out when the order's different.
Yeah.
But it's really close. So number 5 is Captain Marvel. Yes, I put Captain Marvel above Spider-Man Far From Home. Look, I'm sure I'm going to love Spider-Man Far From Home. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I really don't like Jake Gyllenhaal. And he finally got himself into one of these superhero movies like he's been threatening to do for the last 20 years. And to go further...
It's only been 15.
It's been since Spider-Man 2. So that's close to 20 years.
It's 15.
So further to that, he's playing Mysterio, who, according to the plot description from the leaked description of the first trailer, is working for Shield and a good guy, and not the
Doesn't
villain of the movie.
at all.
So and the actual villains of the movie are the Elementals. And I know they've taken characters that nobody cares about or nobody's heard of and put them in these movies and made them work. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions, but I'm going to see this movie for Tom Holland and not for any of the stuff I just described.
Yeah, on the surface, it doesn't sound very promising.
Right. I'm sure it'll be good, but none of that sounds good to me. But Captain Marvel, we're getting our first Marvel female-led movie. And I think
it's about time.
I think Brie Larson looks really good as Carol. I'm a little bit put off by the whole she's the most powerful character in the Marvel universe because okay, if she's going to be in the MCU, the most powerful character, that's fine. I mean, they can establish whatever they want, but they keep referencing how she's the most powerful character in the Marvel universe like she is in the comics. She's nowhere near that in the comics.
No. Carol has usually been upper middle tier.
Yeah, she's like Spider-Man tier, or a little bit higher.
No, I'd say she's definitely higher than Spider-Man.
I mean, in terms of raw strength, they're probably about as strong, but she has, vast energy powers and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, if that's what they're going for in the movie is her being the most powerful, that's fine. It's just it reminds me of the Deadpool thing about this is what Deadpool's like in the comics.
Right.
And it's like, no, he's not. I mean, you can make him this way in the movie, but he's not like this in the comics.
The other, okay, I have Captain Marvel as my number 5.
Right, it's number 5 for both of us.
Right. There are a lot of things for this I'm looking forward to, but there are also things I'm a little bit worried about. And some of them are that they're radically changing her background to make her work for the MCU, so that in some ways it's almost a completely different character. The whole thing with that we've been getting hints of from the trailers and where she was what I'm assuming is that she was physically altered by the Kree and abducted and has been in their military for the last I don't know how many years. That's all new. None of that is from the comics.
No, that seems to me to be a construct to make it work with her being away from Earth all this time.
Well, the thing is, she's supposed to be a fighter pilot from the 80s, my understanding, and she's returning to Earth in the early 90s. So she's only been away for maybe a few years, I'm assuming. We're not going to get set up for why she's been away from Earth from the 90s to Infinity War.
But I think we'll get that explained
We'll probably get that explained
in the movie, and I think this ties into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing, but
the other aspect is one of the things I've always loved about Carol from the comics is that she has elements of being a geek and a bit of a dork, and it seems like that's all been wiped away just to focus on Carol being this ultimate badass.
Yeah, I mean,
But the thing is, to be fair, that is something that they've been aggressively pushing since they gave her the title Captain Marvel.
But even that,
iconic.
You're not wrong about the geek stuff, but I feel like that's such a small part of her history because I remember falling in love with Carol when she wasn't even Ms. Marvel at the time. She was Warbird at the time. And this stuff and the more modern stuff, and when she was Warbird and when she had the alcohol problem and the new Life of Captain Marvel series and all that all to me seems like it all jives together. And then there was the series right before Civil War that Frank Cho did the covers for, and I can't remember who wrote it. And
Ryan Reed.
The Ryan Reed series.
That's the series I like.
It's a good series. I like the series, but that's the only series out of everything in Carol's history where I remember them pushing the geek aspect.
That's fair. I get that. It's just I don't know. It's just I thought he did so much more to expand her personality. The more modern stuff since Kelly Sue DeConnick has done more to expand her background. But I think it's made her as a detriment. I think it's made her much more of a dour, serious character. Whereas the Brian Reed series, I enjoyed it because it made her much more relatable. It humanized her to a large degree, and I think that they are really more focusing on the Kelly Sue DeConnick stuff for this film, and I get that. It's just, you know, they're changing the name of the cat to make it more tougher, and I mean, it's just
whoa.
Hey,
No one on Earth would ever describe Goose as being tougher than Chewbacca.
how about they went from a Star Wars reference to Top Gun, which is kick ass.
I think you're.
I don't know. To me, it's an example of kind of like aggressively pushing the badass fighter pilot stuff.
I don't fully agree with you.
I don't know.
However, all that said, while the trailers mostly look good to me, I freaking hate that line in the trailer about "I'm not going to fight your war. I'm going to end it." Yeah, that's how you end wars, is fighting them. I hate that line. It's so stupid.
It's a stupid line.
And it's supposed to be badass, but it's like, I don't know what words mean.
There's an element in the trailer of them trying too hard.
But as I've said multiple times, this episode alone, I don't think modern trailers are good.
No.
Hey, no, I'll save it. So number four on my list, number 3 on your list, is Godzilla King of Monsters. Now, I'm a huge Godzilla fan. I like that other Godzilla movie they made, but I don't love it by any means.
No.
And I ended up liking Kong Skull Island more than I liked Godzilla, which surprised me because the trailers and everything for Kong Skull Island and the premise, I didn't think I was going to like it that much.
Agreed.
But I ended up liking it more than Godzilla. Godzilla is a satisfying, okay film. Man, every time I see the new trailer, and I've seen it a bunch of times in the theater already, seeing Mothra and Rodan and that final shot in the trailer of Godzilla and King Ghidorah charging at each other, I'm all in on this, man. I've been waiting. I have a customer who's a Godzilla fan, and he's like, I've been waiting 50-some years to see King Ghidorah and Godzilla fight in a scene like that, where it's not puppets. And it's like, yeah, I'm not that old. I'm only I'm gonna be 43 this year, but I've been watching Godzilla movies since I was 8, 7, something like that, and I've been waiting for that scene since then. So this movie, yeah, I mean, and it could just end up being a big dumb monster fight movie, but I'm super jazzed for it.
Oh, I hope it's just a big dumb monster fight film. I am completely on board if that's the case. The thing to me is, yeah, I love kaiju films. I love Godzilla. My big problem is that the Japanese films tend to ignore the weight and verisimilitude of Godzilla. So seeing Godzilla and King Ghidorah, in which they look like giant, unknowable behemoth monsters striding this earth, going one-on-one, is something I've been wanting for decades myself. My only thing is, my favorite Toho kaiju character is, without a doubt, Mothra. I love Mothra. The one thing I'm a little hesitant about is I'm not sold on the redesign for Mothra, where it's like they kind of try to make her look more hornet or wasp-like instead of I'm sorry, Mothra to me needs to be big, fluffy, and cute. So I'm not sold on that.
Yeah, I like how she looks, so.
But King Ghidorah just looks so incredible.
King Ghidorah looks amazing.
I want to see the movie simply for Ghidorah.
Yeah. Hopefully. Also the line in the trailer about us being Godzilla's pets. I've been saying similar statements to that the entire time I've been a Godzilla fan. So.
Yeah, this looks like it's gonna be really, really fun, and I hope it is.
So my number 3, your number 4 is Shazam. Shazam is
the other Captain Marvel.
The other Captain Marvel movie, yes. Shazam is, I believe, the last time I checked, number 6 on my favorite superhero list. He's always one that, like, He'll tend to slip down because they don't do a lot with him, and then if I'm not getting good Shazam stuff, I don't want to say forget about him, but when you're not getting exposed to stuff and you're getting exposed to good stuff from other characters, you think about the other stuff more. Shazam also the first character to ever appear in live action cinema for superheroes, because the original I think it was Republic did a serial. They wanted to do a Superman serial. DC said, I don't know how you're going to do a Superman serial. That doesn't make any sense. So they went over to Fawcett and they did a Captain Marvel one. And then everybody got a serial in the next year and a half after that. Superman, Batman, Captain America.
Captain America, yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like they're following the Jeff Johns storyline from the New 52, but making sure the tone is more fitting into classic Captain Marvel Shazam.
Mm-hmm.
I like everything in the trailer. Like, you can recognize most of the stuff in the trailer from that Jeff Johns run. But
yeah, it seems to me very much like what Marvel did with the MCU, where a lot of it was informed by the Ultimate Comics versions, but with the personalities of the original Marvel 616.
Right.
This seems like it's very much the Jeff Johns New 52 version of Captain Marvel, but with the personality of the classic Captain Marvel.
And
I'm hopeful for.
I don't remember exactly word for word how they adjust it, but in the first issue of John's new Shazam book, they basically address this is who Billy is, this is why he was chosen, this is the way his character is, which is the classic Captain Marvel presentation. And they basically come out, like, the story basically comes out and says, this is why he was the way he was in the New 52 book, and this is the same continuity. And they try to rectify it, and they try to say, if that was your problem with the presentation of the character in that book, this is why this works, Okay. And I thought it was smart of them to do that. I wish I could remember off the top of my head exactly how they said it, because I want to get the wording right. But it was basically saying that he was the character that we think of Billy as being, and that the jerkiness and whatnot that they had in there was really just like his self-defense mechanism that he had built up over time. That's a simplification of what Johns actually says. But I thought it was very smart of Johns to actually address it, because people have been talking about it for the 3 or 4 years since that book came out.
Because I was so turned off by it, just because Billy, who is supposed to be a hopeful character, was such a little creeper. I couldn't stand the character. It just turned me off the entire thing, which is a shame, because it's Billy Batson. It should be a character that you like.
Right.
But everything for this movie just looks great. I think a large part of that goes into Zachary Levi's performance from what we've seen in the trailers, because I said before, I've watched 5 seasons of him starring in Chuck, and I loved that show, and I thought he was phenomenal in that. And if anyone can play Tom Hanks type big thing where it's going to be a kid trapped in an adult body, it's going to be him. I think he can pull this off, and I think he looks great. The other thing is that it's suddenly just blanked on the director.
Oh, that guy.
Oh, yeah, no, I know his name. I'm a fan of the guy.
Sandberg, David Sandberg.
Yeah, David Sandberg. I mean, he directed 2 movies that I really, really loved a lot. Lights Out and Annabelle Creation, which was one of my absolute favorite movies from 2017. That was just an incredible movie as far as I'm concerned. And this is a guy who, those 2 films were horror movies in which he showed he could handle special effects and he could handle genre stuff, but they were so imbued with emotion and character and story. And both films had young child casts, and he showed a lot of depth with working with young gifted actors, that where I can't imagine this movie not working. I just think everything. I know there's been people were kind of freaking out over how Levi looked in the outfit and how the outfit looked, frankly. but everything about it just seems to me like it has to work. I think it's going to work because I haven't been disappointed by Zachary Levi in a performance before, and David Sandberg has a great track record,
Right.
at least for me.
My only question mark is how they're giving Savannah different powers, which he traditionally doesn't have powers. In the New 52 run, he had some sort of mystic connection, but it almost feels like the one scene in the trailer where Shazam is confronting Savannah. It seems like it's supposed to be the scene where he is confronting Black Adam from the New 52 comic.
I can't remember, but I think I read something half a year ago that suggested that Savannah ends up giving himself like mental powers,
Right.
like it's telekinesis or something. So I'm assuming it's something like that. But the thing is, they got Mark Strong to play Savannah.
Oh yeah, no, Mark Strong
It's
playing Savannah is
casting.
I'm super excited for that. And I hope we get I hope we get him giving a full introduction with the full Thaddeus Bodog Savannah name. The girl playing Mary is like in her 20s. That's a little weird to me, but we'll see how that shakes out.
She played one of the girls, one of the orphans in Annabelle Creation, and she was perfectly fine in that. Where she was actually like I think 20 at the time.
I mean,
and she was supposed to be playing like 15, 16. She made it work.
She's supposed to be playing Mary Broomfield. It makes more sense to me that she plays Mary Marvel, you know.
Right.
And they have somebody else play Mary Broomfield, but we'll see. Yep. We'll see what happens there. So yeah, that's Shazam. So number 2 on my list, number 1 on Derek's list is Stranger Things season 3. Man, that little clip that they just released last week.
I haven't even seen it.
Yeah, you have. It's just like the ad saying that with the date, and it's like animated.
I didn't see it.
You should really look at our own social media every now and then, because it's on there.
I've been having problems with Facebook with my feed for the last 3 or 4 months. I'm not seeing stuff. Okay, I got to look for this. The trailer, or not even a trailer, but the little video they released back in the summer.
No, the fake commercial for the wall, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I love this show so much, and I just end up loving the characters so much more with season 2. I cannot wait to see how things are going to be different and expanded on in season 3. I'm really, really looking forward to this. I'm not sure how much longer we have to wait. It doesn't come out till the summer, though, right? Like June, July?
Oh my god, dude. You really didn't see this ad? It's July 4th. They gave us a date. It's July 4th.
Okay, yeah. No, I just remembered that they said July 4th. That's right. Because I saw the poster, and I shared the poster. And it's I watched the fireworks.
There's an animated version of that poster, and that's what I meant by the clip. So.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that.
So yeah, I mean.
I want to see more Steve.
I'm all in on anything to do with Stranger Things at this point. So I know we were both late to the party on that, but they haven't given me any reason to falter. And I know a lot of people that freaked out last year about the Emo 11 episode, and I've actually heard stories of people like not finishing the season because of that episode. But I thought that episode was so smart in context.
I thought it was interesting. My only issue with that is I thought it would have been better if they wove that with. I think it was the next. They did one episode which didn't have 7 at all, or 11 at all, and I thought that the 2 episodes could have been merged together and kind of woven together to make it. But I get what they were doing with it, and I don't know. I think it did work. It's my least favorite episode.
Oh, I don't think you're supposed to like the episode. But right. I think it is very important for the development of her character.
It definitely is. It definitely is. Yeah, I can't imagine not watching the rest of the show this season after that episode.
I may have even heard things about people canceling their Netflix because of that.
Oh, and so people really love to overreact.
Yes, they do.
Oh.
Hey, there's a Layla Rana movie coming out next year. That's interesting.
A what movie?
The Curse of Layla Rana.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna share the trailer for that on my Facebook, but I ended up for not doing that. I think it looks really good. It looks like a good spooky, scary ghost hunting film. I'm not familiar with the mythology.
Yeah, I am, because it's a very Mexican thing, and
I'm aware of that.
Interesting to me that they're making a film out of that. So
yeah, I think it looks really good. I can't remember who's directing it, but it was someone where it sounded like it was going to be good.
All right,
I think James Wan is producing it, but I'm not 100% sure.
I just clicked off the thing, so.
Okay.
But yeah. So finally, my number one, your number two, is Avengers Endgame. Now, the thing I was going to say earlier is I keep saying how much I don't like trailers. Was that Avengers Endgame trailer? I watched it again this afternoon. It is one of the best trailers I've ever seen in my life. It gives you enough to wet your whistle, but doesn't give anything away for the movie.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not sure what to say that isn't going to sound weird, given that one of the knocks we had for the trailer for Infinity War was that it showed us stuff that wasn't unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really give us anything to say, this is why you have to see it. Whereas this one's all about holding back.
Right. It kind of feels like a prequel to the movie itself. Like, it's very much a, here's where our heroes are in the wake of the last movie.
Yeah, and we get the last one with Ant-Man.
Right.
Yeah, no, I don't know what it is, but for some reason that trailer works. It's just funny to me that before Infinity War came out, my interest had basically dropped. I wouldn't say to nothing, but very, very little like need to see the movie. But this one, I'm all on board. I want to see where the story's going to go. I know it's going to end with most of the deaths being undone, and I expect that. I mean, I've read the original comics. I know what we're getting. It's a superhero movie. I know what we're getting, but I just want to see how they're going to do it.
Right. As of the time of this recording, 111 days until its release.
Still a few months.
Yeah, but
so many superhero movies in the next few months.
There is. It's actually, the year's kind of front loaded, and then the later part of the year is not so much, because
Charlie's Angels.
That looks terrible.
It does.
The idea of what that movie is seems
There's 3 different Bosleys.
And one of them's the Wizard Shazam. So
it's so weird. Someone on drugs when they were writing this?
Oh no! So that's what's funny. There's 2 movies that are Captain Marvel, because yes, one is called Shazam, but it's Captain Marvel, and I always feel like I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but Digimon Hansu is in both movies.
Mm-hmm.
He's in both Captain Marvel movies.
Yep.
Because he's Korath the Pursuer from Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's the Wizard Shazam in Shazam. So.
Yeah, the character from Guardians is going to be in the Captain Marvel film. That's correct.
Right. So Annette Bening's in Captain Marvel. Interesting.
Oh my God, is she playing her mother?
Let's find out. And Jude Law is now like the official prequel guy. Annette Bening as a Kree scientist.
Oh, okay. All of it. That sounds interesting. Hey, get off there.
Yeah. So that's our most anticipated. We can briefly talk about what we've been doing that we didn't cover already, because some of it we talked about.
Yeah.
Hey, the Orville's back, and man, did I miss this show.
Oh, it's so fun.
I knocked out the second episode today. Well, the second episode was good, but I thought the first episode was really, really good. I was really happy to have the show back with that first episode.
Yeah, the first episode I think was stronger. I thought the second one was really good. It's the one that, under my understanding, that was filmed as part of season 1, but held back because of scheduling issues.
Right. I love the idea of regular Star Trek situations, except the occasional, like, oh, we don't talk about this kind of stuff on Trek or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think the show does it. Some of it's supposed to be crass humor, but it does it in such a smart way. I mean, you had told me, because you watched the second episode before I had, that it was basically a remake of the episode where
Hollow Pursuits.
Yeah, Hollow Pursuits, where Barkley is addicted to being on the holodeck, and it is basically that, but it's also like the naughty sex version of that.
Right. They flat out refer to it as porn addiction.
Right.
Whereas they with the Star Trek Next Generation episode, they kind of, for lack of a better term, pussyfoot around with it.
Right.
Like they, but yeah, it was also interesting because we also get like, I love how the show can just do these kind of like goofy, bizarre situations, and like we're getting bored of saying Clyden in marriage counseling, and just this bizarre, goofy juxtaposition. We're also getting all these jokes and occasional crass stuff, but then it ends on such a poignant note.
Right.
With the destruction of the planet and the people sacrificing and dying, and I love that about this show, that we get these two sides. I'm fighting with my kid and he's attacking my laptop. Come on, stop it. But yeah, I'm so glad this show's back. I missed it so much. I mean, love all these characters.
The first episode of the season was basically a relationship episode.
Yeah, we got a lot of great character stuff with basically the entire cast.
Right. You know, and the backdrop of the episode, the science fiction-y part of the episode was we're going to Mockless to watch Bortus P. Yeah. But the rest of the episode was just like it was just relationship stuff.
I don't know if I can say this or if I'm going to get bleeped, but it was kind of like they were literally taking the
yeah, no, I get you.
out of all those Worf episodes they used to do on Next Generation.
Yeah, they really like making fun of how serious the Klingon stuff was on Next Generation with the Mocklin stuff on this show. So,
but it works.
It totally does. It totally does. So you and I watched the 2017 version of It last night. You had not seen it. This was my third time seeing it. Yeah, I'm saying it.
Just picturing Chris Jericho, sorry.
This was my third time seeing it. I remember famously absolutely hated it the first time I saw it, and liked it enough to tolerate it the second time I saw it. Didn't really change my opinion too much, although it went up like 5 or 6 spots on my flick chart. You're talking about over 500 films on there, so that's not that significant of a jump. I don't know. You definitely liked it better than me. However, most everything you said last night was very similar to my opinion about it. So
yeah, I don't think it was a great movie, but I thought it was a good movie. And there were things I didn't like about it, but I don't know. I think the positives outweighed it, which are I thought the child cast was great. I thought they did a really good job with the horror. Oh my god, he's biting me. I thought they did a great job with the horror scenes. The makeup effects were all incredible, and the atmosphere was really good. Afterwards, you went to bed, and I ended up deciding to finally get around to watching my copy of Stephen King's It, which is the title of the 1990 TV miniseries.
Yeah.
Which I've had on Blu-ray for I think at least 2 years, if not 3 years.
I've had it for about 2 years. I bought it right before the other one came out.
Yeah, I think that must have been, might have been around the time when I bought it. So I finally watched it, and it does not hold up that well. It was this huge thing when I was 14, and it was incredible back then, but yeah, it looked really dated now, and it just seemed really corny, and the acting was not as good as the new version, and everything about the original was bright and shiny, and it kind of really did a disservice.
What's funny is that's what I kind of remember the most about the original was how bright it was.
Best thing in it though is Tim Curry. Tim Curry's just phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
And he disappears like 15 minutes before it ends.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly like the kids. I do like Pennywise in the movie. I think Pennywise's portrayal is great.
Oh yeah.
I just, it was something that you were saying last night was like, okay, so there's the idea in the film, and you said this gets blatantly called out in the original.
Oh yeah,
that
they flat out address it.
that the evil in the town is what is causing the adults to not be to not be as concerned with the stuff that's going on to the kids, or be helping in any way, or whatnot, or be tolerant of all the terrible things that are going on. It's hinted at in the new movie. There's actually, I really like the stuff where, like, if you're listening to the radio or the TV in the background in any of the scenes, you'll hear, like, basically there's like a message being delivered about like all the evil stuff being okay, somehow supernaturally. But all of the adult characters, I don't have a problem with the adult characters having been corrupted to be influenced by the evil, and therefore that's why they don't properly respond to the kids' calls for help. But all of the adult characters are just on level 10 or on setting 10 the entire time with their anger.
Right. There is no variation to how they're acting. They are just, it's like everyone is on all caps.
Right. And the bully gang is just on 10 crazy the whole time.
Right.
You know? So even though the kids are for the most part, you know, have character development and are up and down and, you know, are learning things throughout the film, I really like Bill, I really like Bev. I still can't stand Finn Wolfhard as Richie. I think he's just absolutely annoying as all get out.
Yeah, my favorites out of the kids were Beverly and Ben.
Yeah, Ben's good too. But yeah, I just like, if all the parts, like, this is why I think I'm liking it. I liked it more the second time. Like the ending part where they go down to fight Pennywise, like, all that stuff's fine. That's like, I can dig on all that. It's just like, oh, the son of the police chief just cut a kid with a knife enough to make a massive gaping wound, and nobody does anything about it. Now, I get it. The evil's corrupting them, so no one is going to do anything about it. But it's not, I don't think it's explained properly.
No, it's not set up well.
Yeah, I'm interested in watching the original again, although I had a feeling it wasn't going to hold up.
Yeah,
I basically bought it for Tim Curry, so.
Tim Curry's phenomenal in it, but he basically disappears from the climax. And but will say I think it improves as it goes along.
Well, I mean, that's something, I guess.
Yeah, it's still 3 hours though.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely hated the film the first time I saw it, and I mean, I tolerated watching it last night. It's like, but it's still not very high on my list. So
yeah, it's just tough because the miniseries was these scenes that should be like really disturbing, and I admit they were disturbing when I was 14 years old. And in context of when that movie the miniseries came out, this was stuff that you were not seeing on television. You were not seeing blood pouring out of a book. That was something shocking on primetime network television back then. But everything is lit like it's a McDonald's commercial where everything's bright and shiny, and it's just, I think there's some real pacing problems with the miniseries. But again, we're talking about something that's like almost 30 years old at this point.
Right, yeah, I mean, it came out, our freshman year of high school?
Yeah, I think it was November 1990. So I had just turned 14 a couple months before. But man, I remember that the first part aired on a Sunday, and that Monday morning, going to school, and that's all anyone could talk about was how great it was, how scary it was, and how Tim Curry was incredible. And no one could wait for part 2. And then part 2 aired Monday night, and then Tuesday morning going to school, and everyone going, my God, that was terrible. It's a giant spider. It was a claymation spider.
He's not wrong. I do not live near Derek, and I had the exact same experience. Some 8 or 9 years before I met you, so
something like that. Actually, I think it was closer to 10 or 11.
Yeah. So yeah, I had the exact same experience at Crown Point High School. So it was, oh my God, it was so good. I can't wait till tonight. The next day it was, wow, that wasn't very good, was it?
What a letdown.
So Yeah, there's that. Let's see what else. We both watched the Doctor Who New Year's special. Now, we talked about Doctor Who a bunch already. The one thing I wanted to say with this was I'm very happy that my first year watching Doctor Who, I didn't get robbed of a Dalek episode.
Yeah, that's the thing. They kept saying, "Oh, we're not doing any of the classic monsters for the first season or first series," and they kept saying that they weren't doing it for the New Year special. And then all of a sudden, boop! Oh, I guess they lied. Thankfully, actually.
No, yeah, because he was great, and I'd never gotten to really. I mean, I know what they look like, and I know Exterminate, but like my favorite thing in the episode was, I think he's laughing, just that guttural noise that he was making.
Oh
But
yeah,
I also really liked when she explained to him who she was, and he just flips out. The Doctor is the enemy of all the Daleks, and he just
yeah.
goes into murder mode. It's like I got to stop this person, you know.
Yeah, well, we've gotten that before, that kind of scene before with the Doctor confronting either the Daleks or other villains. But it's always pretty cool because you think about it, the Doctor's character at this point, I think, is around 2,000 years old. He's been traveling in and out of history and time and space all over the different galaxies. That the Doctor has a reputation that precedes him or her.
Right.
Yeah, it was great. It was I I'm not gonna say I didn't like the series finale a couple of weeks ago, but I thought it was the weakest episode of this season.
100% agree with you.
But man, this was such a better finale for the season. This was a great episode. This was I think this was one of the best that they've done this year.
You know what else was really good was the stark comparison of how the Doctor reacted when she met Yaz's mom versus how she reacted when she met Ryan's dad.
Oh yeah.
She just like kept straight up calling out Ryan's dad for what a terrible father he was. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, she's not doing it to be mean. It's just how the Doctor is.
Right.
The other thing I liked is I really enjoyed the parallels between this episode and the first episode from this season, which ends with the Doctor making a makeshift lab to create a brand new sonic screwdriver, and then we end up with the Dalek making a makeshift lab to create a very primitive Dalek shell casing body. I thought that was kind of an interesting parallel.
Yeah,
because the scenes actually played out very similar.
What's funny about that is the finale was going for comparisons to the premiere. And I think the New Year's episode did a better job of that.
I think it was just a superior episode, top to bottom. Yeah, I am so looking forward to Series 12. It just bothers me that we have to wait another year. I hope they haven't said anything, and as far as I know, we have no reason to expect it. But man, I would really hope that they would give us a Christmas special at the end of this year, in December 2019. But I guess it's wishful thinking at this point.
Right. And you know they're putting out a full season Blu-ray. Is that going to have the New Year's special, or are they going to put that as a separate movie?
Honestly, I don't know, because traditionally the Christmas specials end up getting released on the season sets of the next year.
Oh, okay.
But this one is very much a finale for this season.
Well,
so it has to be on this one.
The Wikipedia page for the 11th series mentions Doctor Who, the complete 11th series, set details, and it says 10 episodes. So
sounds like they're not. I know that they always put out a solo Blu-ray release of the specials.
Yeah, because I've had several of those in the store, so I knew that. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anything else you wanted to hit as far as stuff you've done? Because I know we talked about Charmed already, and it. Yeah,
we got half my stuff. I did, just in brief, I did mention that last Sunday I binged all of the Charmed episodes
Mm-hmm.
to date, which are the first 9 for the new series. The funny thing is from Thursday, which is not Thursday actually, it was Friday. I got sick on Thursday, and from then till early Sunday morning, I ended up binging like 24 Hallmark Lifetime Christmas movies on demand. And this is like 5 days after Christmas. It's just my sister kept coming in the room and I'm watching these, and she's going, "Why are you watching these?" It just going, because I have a weird thing when I get the flu or I get a bad cold. For the first few days, it's like my body cannot allow my brain to shut down to sleep, and I just end up becoming like this, like wired. I don't have energy to do anything, but I can't rest. And I didn't want to watch. I couldn't go on the computer because it was just too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to watch anything that was going to be like where I would have to pay a lot of attention. And quite frankly, these TV movies have very simple plots, and they're very soft. There's not a lot of like crazy editing. And I was just skimming around. I found out that they had one which starred Brandon Routh, which came out 4 years ago, like I think 2014. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to watch that. It's Brandon Routh in a Hallmark Christmas movie where he plays a firefighter, falls in love with a girl, and they both have cats. I just thought, I'm going to watch that. So I ended up watching it. I actually enjoyed it. And then one thing led to another. I ended up watching like 24 of these movies. Some of them were terrible. Some of them I actually would watch again next year. As funny as that is.
He said 24, folks. Just FYI.
Yeah, it might have been closer to 15, but I'm not sure. It was a lot. The other thing is from Christmas Eve until Boxing Day, I binged the entire series of Upstart Crow, which is I think it's BBC, sitcom starring David Mitchell, British comedian that I like, in which he plays William Shakespeare. And it's basically the trials and tribulations of William Shakespeare trying to mount a successful theater career and his home life in 1500.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's written by the guy who wrote and created the Blackadder TV show back in the 80s.
Okay.
And so it's very much that kind of humor, and it's surprising. This show was simultaneously lowbrow and highbrow, because you're getting all these like Shakespearean puns and everything like that. But meanwhile, William Shakespeare's father goes to the bathroom in a bucket in the middle of the kitchen. So it's like, it's really weird. But I binged the entire series. And I thought that was really fun.
What does he live at Hogwarts or something? That's a reference. I'm not going to explain it. Go search it out.
Yeah, Google that, or
Google.
Go to Twitter and look up the Pottermore Twitter page.
Yeah, and you'll find it. Okay,
yeah,
so
that's it for me. That's it for me.
For me, I did go see The Mule, which was the Clint Eastwood directed and starred movie about the 70-some-year-old drug mule. Good film, not great film. Not one of his absolute best for sure. Interesting that he doesn't play the grizzled old tough guy like he does in all of his other movies. Like, several characters in the movie compare him to Jimmy Stewart. He's kind of just like the regular type of old guy who just happens to have not been a very good father in his life. You know,
more like a regular grandfather rather than a tough guy who's gonna beat the crap out of anyone.
Right. You never get to that moment like you do in Unforgiven or Gran Torino or any of the movies over the last 20-some years where Eastwood's played his, retiring older guy, where you're like, oh, this old guy's gonna take these young kids apart. It's just he's just this old guy who used to be a horticulturist of all things. He used to grow flowers, and basically didn't change with the times, and the internet destroyed his business, and he needed money, and he was trying to get back into the good graces of his daughter and his granddaughter because he'd never been a good father, and ends up being a drug mule. because he had like a clean driving record and somehow fell in with these guys, and they, were paying him huge money to move this stuff.
It really seems like it's both a very much a typical Clint Eastwood type of film, but an atypical Clint Eastwood performance.
Yeah, kind of. My complaint about the film is I thought the ending was too abrupt, and almost to the point of being unsatisfying. Everything up to that point I thought was really good. So, but when it ends, I was like, that's it? That's how it's gonna end? So, I won't give away the ending, but yeah, that's how I felt about it. As I said, I saw Mary Poppins Returns the night before Christmas. Well, the day before Christmas, really. The thing that I didn't mention talking about it earlier was, as I said, it's, make you remember what it's like to be a kid or whatever. Man, did this movie wreck me emotionally. Like, I think a friend of ours said blubbery mess while watching the movie. There were so many, like, moments where it was just like, oh, you don't have a heart if this doesn't affect you, Which is kind of a classic Disney thing.
I want to see the movie, and it's really got two things for why I want to see it. I want to see it for Emily Blunt, and I really like the message that everyone needs to express their imagination and a sense of play.
Right.
I like that message.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it was. Also, in any other movie, Lin-Manuel Miranda would have stolen the movie. Mm-hmm. He only does not steal a movie because Emily Blunt is so freaking good. But he is really good himself, and in any other movie, he would have stolen the movie. Also, weird thing to say, Meryl Streep, probably my least favorite thing in the movie.
Which is shocking.
Which is shocking because it's Meryl Streep. And literally, when her section of the movie started, which is, like I said, there's kind of parallels to the original film, so it's similar to the scene where they go to the uncle's house with the laughing problem. I can't remember the character's name right now. But it's that kind of thing. Like, we're gonna go down into the alleys of darkest London and go to this shop to meet this person, and and she's supposed to be Mary's cousin. And when that whole section started, I'm like, this is like the first thing that didn't immediately hit me with, oh, this is great. It was a little weak. And then she starts her song, and I thought the song started weak. Once the song got going, I think the scene sorted itself out. But I'm like, how is Meryl Streep the weakest thing in this movie so far?
Yeah, that is definitely unexpected.
So usually from Christmas, when I'm done with my Christmas movies, to New Year's, I try to watch some of my favorite movies of the year. Or I'm sorry, my favorite movies of all time. I did manage to get a couple of those in. I watched Blazing Saddles. I watched Dr. Strangelove. I watched Citizen Kane for the first time in a couple of years. Funny thing about Citizen Kane is I always think, I'm supposed to like this movie. It's supposed to be this great movie, and so it's high on my list because it's supposed to be. And then I watch it and remember that I love every little thing about that movie. I love all the characters are completely fascinating to me. And basically watching this guy, essentially Citizen Kane is watching somebody who has everything ruin their life. And just watching that process happen is fascinating. The way it's shot, the way it's acted, the way it's directed. And I understand, that there's a lot of there's camera techniques in that movie that were never done until that movie, and editing techniques that were never done until that movie. Right. That can get lost on you if you've watched a ton of movies, as we both have. I only know that some of these techniques are used for the first time in Citizen Kane because I read that somewhere. So if you're looking at it as just like, oh, that's just a camera technique that people use, you actually have to watch it with that mindset of, this is the first time this camera technique, which I see in every movie, was ever used, and it means something. But take all that out of it. The story's great, the acting's great, watching those characters interact, watching this guy destroy himself is just, it never gets boring to me. I love that movie. I then watched The Third Man, which was I've only ever seen one other time, but it was on I had bought it on Blu-ray, so it was on my unwatched list. And that movie's really good. Of the three major Wells films I can think of that I've seen repeatedly, it's probably my least favorite. I like Touch of Evil a little bit more.
Well, that one's actually not directed by Wells. It's directed
No, I just mean Wells being in it.
Oh, right. It's. I just wanted to say I think it's Carol Reed.
Right. But I really like the film. I think there's a little bit in the third act that drags, but other than that, I thought it was really well acted and just an interesting story. Um, Really, Joseph Cotton's more the star of this than Wells is. So
Oh yeah,
he
yeah.
puts on a
Wells
great
isn't in for
performance.
most of the movie.
He's in like the last third, but he got second billing, I believe. But yeah, Cotton's great in it. So, and then, as I said earlier, New Year's Eve. So Monday Night Raw's on, and I watch that, and it ends at 10, and I start Alien at 10 o'clock, and Alien ends right at midnight, and I sort of, I don't often give Alien the credit it deserves because Aliens is my favorite film, but like I don't often remember just how stinking good Alien is. So I watch Alien, and I really feel like I need to watch it more often because I watch Aliens every year, but I only watch Alien every couple of years.
Oh, Alien's definitely the one I watch the most.
And I really like it, and I'm like, it's midnight, I'm starting Aliens, and I sit and watch Aliens till like 3 in the morning. And it's my favorite film, so what else can I say about it? It's my favorite film. So that's like 5 hours well spent, right? Go to bed, wake up the next day, it's New Year's Day, we're not going anywhere, I don't have to work, I have nothing to do. I put in Blade Runner, and I watch Blade Runner, and at the end of Blade Runner, oh, did Derek get disconnected? I'm going to pause the recording, and we'll be right back with you. Okay, we're back, and yeah, I was saying, so the next morning I get up and say, I'm going to watch Blade Runner, and I put Blade Runner on and watch it. It's like 2 hours long, right? A little bit over 2 hours. And
yeah, not too much longer than that.
And I say, I'm going to watch Blade Runner 2046, which is like almost 3 hours. So another 5 hour stretch of sci-fi movies with nothing to do that day. You know what? It was a day well spent. I enjoyed myself. I really love all 4 of those movies. 3 of them are in my top 20. And Alien crept closer to my top 20 after this watching. So that's what I did for my New Year's, and that's really what all else I've had going on. I've had the new issue of Heroes in Crisis for like a week or so. I haven't read it yet. I need to get around to doing that. Hopefully I get back on track here. So, very quickly, let me state that we have full intention of getting back to the weekly schedule. We just had so much stuff going on at the end of 2018. We don't have a schedule as far as what we're doing on what episodes yet, so I'm not going to give you what we're doing next week, but hopefully we'll get all that figured out in the weeks to come. Someone, actually a couple of you, told me in the store this week that you were glad we were doing the podcast again, and so that I really appreciate that, and hopefully more of you out there feel that way as well. So that's where we're at. We hopefully be back on track with a regular show, and if you don't hear from us for a couple of weeks, know that we have full intention of continuing the show. We're not going anywhere. We just have to get everything back on the straight and narrow for us to continue with our schedule that we were using before.
Quite frankly, we have to figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, it was a lot of time off, and we're not sure. So
Right. Yeah. Got to find new main topics.
So that is Derek and Matt Love Comics for the week. You can contact us, Derek and Matt Love Comics @gmail.com, Facebook.com/Derek and Matt, Twitter @Derek and Matt, Instagram @Derek and Matt, YouTube @Derek and Matt Love Comics, and you can find the show on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, and TuneIn. Please subscribe and give us a rating on iTunes. We very much appreciate it. Also, if you are looking for any information on the greatest comic shop in the galaxy, it's galacticgregs.com, facebook.com/galacticgregs. Big changes coming there, as there has been all year. We've been making improvements, and try by the Facebook page to see what's going on, because it seems like always something going on at this point. Music for this episode is the hero theme and adventure meme by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Derek, any last words?
Oh gosh, I had something prepared, but I can't remember what it was. So I'm just gonna say, it's great to be back in 2019, and we'll be back with another episode soon.
And I'll follow that up by saying Happy New Year to everybody, and thanks for listening. We will see you soon.